moisture like sun lays me down. With my mind she was throughout the night. No need to fight, never a frown. Every time, just like the last, on the ship, tied to the mast, through distant lands.
Veerash.
Let's go be contact.
Yes.
Go be there. Go be. I'll plant a day. I'll walk.
Yes.
Rush, don't walk.
Rush. चल पूरा कुछ कर रहा हूँ बताना आपको प्लांट. One shot.
Don't run.
One shot. Last shot.
Nice.
Guys, fasting.
Volume कम है क्या? No, it's not too low. It's 10 only.
मैं एम इन जाना मैं फ्लैशेस दे रहा हूँ. थैंक यू. दे रहा हूँ फ्लैश. घुस जाओ.
I hope so. सही हुआ.
अबे पैलेस चढ़ा हुआ है वो।
अंडर पैलेस पे क्या देख रहे हो भाई?
कनेक्टर है क्या इस पे?
पास कनेक्टर का
आराम से खुदा साइड।
क्या पैनिक गेम प्ले खेल रहा है?
Activating the bomb.
कैन यू ड्रॉप ग्रीन?
Yes.
लेट्स गो।
अरे भाई ये तो
स्मोक कर
ये पॉइंट नहीं है सही से।
कनेक्टर स्मोक कर बैठ गया।
Yes. Now is the time. Thank you, brother. Smoke.
नाइस वन बोनस।
पुश कर मैं दे जा।
अंडर है क्या? अंडर पास डेड है क्या? हेलो आवाज आ रही है मेरी? हेलो
अंडर पास डेड 2B गो अवे। अरे यार
डिफॉल्ट
पता नहीं क्या चल रहा है।
डिफॉल्ट जंगल वन।
Throwing fire.
मेरी आवाज आ रही है? हेलो कहाँ चलना है बता? ये अभी
ए आजा पूरा। रेड रूम में जंगल।
मैं पहले से जंप ले रहा हूँ, ठीक है? तो सिटी कंट्रोल में रख।
सिटी आया स्मोक में। वॉक कर आराम से। वो बीच सेवा फेंक देना ब्रो।
Planted.
कनेक्ट।
माय बैड
कोई बात ओपन पिक मत लिया करो यार। डिफ्यूज कर दिया मैं। सिटी की हमेशा गांड फटती है मुझे। बाय करो। पैसा नहीं है तो डीगल बाय कर लो। बाकी जिन दो जनों का बाय है वो बी निकालने की कोशिश करो। बी बना।
तीनों जगह फाउंड है।
मत जाओ भी यार एक के लिए उसके लिए तो मैं कहला रहे थे। ताले पुश होगा ताले जा।
Point of blocking it meant
ग्रीन आजा यार।
cross or just stay back. GP gameplay है इनका।
साउंड का दिया।
आपने पुश है?
Okay, I was blocked by the ramp, not by them. What is this ping? Let me switch to 4G.
मेरा डी काम नहीं कर रहा है। दे रहा है।
थोड़ा it was lagging.
मैं बॉम्ब नीचे फेंकूंगा। बॉम्ब प्लांट कर। वो एक सिटी लग रहा है, एक जंगल लग रहा है। अंडर वाले स्टेट।
Check 5G stable. Sandwich.
अबे दोनों
Both connector. Full tag तो यार।
क्या मेरी गोलियां खत्म। सॉरी।
एक डीगल गिरा दे भाई।
अरे एक वो कर देते हैं इको P250 दे दूं सबको
बढ़िया भाई।
डीजल चला भाई क्या चाहिए
Yes, yes, yes.
मिल गया भाई।
Run, little girl. Run. This is easy. We killed them.
मैं पैलेस बैठ जाता हूँ
Affirmative.
अरे टाइम आउट नहीं करूँगा कि
अरे भाई डेड लेट मी डिक्रीज द बिट रेट man, इतना क्यों लैग हो रहा है लाइक
प्लांट कर दो
11 PM ट्रिपल आउटसाइड ट्रिपल लास्ट शॉट छोड़ दो उसको पैलेस 2v4 था भाई ये।
I'm planted. Bomb has been planted.
वेट करता अभी राइट साइड क्रॉस कर जाता है सबसे बढ़िया।
हाँ नहीं करेगा
पता है
एक कीबोर्ड चेंज कर लिया मैंने टाइम आउट भी कर दिया
You think you can?
अरे थोड़ा ऑफ बाहर निकालिए अच्छा ठीक है
हाउ मेनी डिवाइसेस
एंड पढ़ो ऑफ इवन पीक ले मैं फ्लैश दे रहा हूं
क्या हो रहा है भाई ये इंटरनेट इज लाइक लगे सीन है भाई इसका।
No fight.
क्या रेमन पुश गए चलो
पीछे तीन है।
Yeah.
एक क्लोज है ब्लू, एक क्लोज है, मैंने सुना है।
I'm throwing fire.
और देख दिया मैं यार
I'm throwing the fire.
बोला था ना।
Smoke.
साइट है ओए ऑफर है डिफॉल्ट अच्छा पैलेस आया अरे प्लांट देते यार
I'm planting the bomb.
यार क्या देख रहे हैं
खत्म भाई ये तो बढ़िया वाला था।
बहुत टाइम पड़ा है फेक प्लांट करो
टेक्नाइम भी करोगे बताओ।
अभी पैसा नहीं मॉन्स्टर देना है यार भाई
टेक्नाइम भी करोगे? डीगल दे रहा हूं, टेक्नाइम भी करोगे बताओ।
हाँ कर लेंगे तू डीगल दे टेक्नाइन भी कर लो भाई फ्लैशेस के साथ करना पड़ता है स्मोक चाहिए मैं दे सकता हूँ
ठीक ठाक लोग है भाई खराब लोग नहीं है भाई बॉटम पे ये
मॉली स्मोक कर देना कोई।
मैं डर जा रहा हूँ
मॉली स्मोक दे दे, मॉली स्मोक कर देंगे चल।
हाँ ठीक है पूछो
मॉली
फ्लैश
स्मोक करो कोई पीछे से। मॉली स्मोक दो।
गो लेट्स गो
रेड
आ गया
शॉट वाले को लो अच्छा ठीक है गन्स लो गन्स
Bomb has been planted.
अबे ऑफर आ गया दो है भी शॉट हाइड रहना नाइस उसकी गन ले ले नहीं करेगा भाई
नहीं कर रहा।
ऑफ ले लो कोई बात नहीं।
अरे यार
वो बिशॉप पीक नहीं रहा था, पता उसको ऑफर पता लग गया था ना उसको।
मैंने उसको पता नहीं रेडी दिया था मैंने।
सुनो ये मैंने एक स्मोक बाइक पर ड्रॉप किया है। स्मोक कर दो, मैं आता हूँ।
स्टक करना चाहिए भाई मेरे को।
कर दो स्मोक जल्दी।
कैसे यार, क्या बकवास कर रहे हो? वेट पुश की कॉल तो दो गाइस। हेलो 100 पास
शॉट
इजीली जीत जाएंगे भाई अगर मैं फोन किया तो।
अंडर पास
जंगल एंड अंडर पास प्लान कर दे भाई। लास्ट एंड जंगल स्टिल जंगल नॉट सिटी।
नहीं कर रहा था, तुमने देखा? नाइस वन।
अच्छा खेल रहा
ये
है।
तो स्ट्रीम क्वालिटी भाई
हाँ,
क्या ही है चल रहा है। इट वाज सो नाइस एट दैट टाइम। उसके बाद फिर लेट्स मेक इट 2K।
अपने भाई इकोनॉमी नहीं हो रही जीतने के बाद पता है
हर बार मजा समझ लो। भाई मेरे को तो फ्लैश देगा जिसके पास
क्या चाहिए बता कहाँ पे फ्लैश
मैं स्मोक दे रहा हूँ।
तो मैं ले रहा हूँ स्मोक बता रहा हूँ
एक और है नीचे राइट में कनेक्टर
कनेक्टिव एंड नेस्ट राइट साइड। कुछ नहीं भाई।
शॉट लैडर के
एम इन क्लोज इट।
अंडरपास तक
जंगल है।
जंगल 1 जंगल एंड सिटी। जाओ एक
चल चल
एक के भी।
आजा जंगल है, जल्दी आजा।
जंगल एंड शॉट लास्ट शॉट छोड़ दो। It's not the streaming issue भाई।
90 लोड एक गोली
मेरा प्लांट है ना
If I stream at like 8000 it doesn't
क्रॉस हुई मार
matter to be honest.
सिटी
I'll stay here. Yes.
भी बना लेंगे एक स्मोक्स के साथ। मुझे स्मोक दोगे भी पे 2 स्मोक फेंक दो।
Yes. Guys, I tell you, we kill them all.
और एक वॉक करते हुए अंडरपास जाना है यार, एक अंडरपास आता है।
देख रहा हूँ ये ले।
कर दूं स्मोक? जाओगे?
कहाँ पे करना है भाई?
मैं कर रहा हूँ, करूँ मैं। एक विंडो फेंक रहा हूँ, एक मैं बी शॉट फेंक रहा हूँ।
आ जाओ फर्स्ट।
Oh, come on!
गो डेड है बैक साइड, मार्केट होगा।
जरा
नहीं बनता है।
साइड क्लोज है, साइड क्लोज।
मैं वो मार
अरे अपना बंदा था भाई, टेक कंट्रोल।
बूस्ट
2 बी शॉट चलो।
एक मार्केट।
वन शॉट वन मार्केट।
बी शॉट में देख रहा हूँ।
भाई
बी शॉट
इजीली विन हो जाएगा। ये अचानक से क्या हो गया? लाइक इट वाज ऑल कूल एंड अचानक
भाई जलील या एक दूं? मैं पहले जा रहा हूँ।
ठीक खेल रहे हैं हम।
ले स्मोक दिया मैंने तेरे को। मिड कर दे।
स्मोक आ गया पहले सुनना है इवेंट वाले। मैं पैलेस पे मॉली कर
ट्रिपल
क्या मस्ती पूरी। डिफॉल्ट नेक्स्ट लेवल नो भी होता है इसका, तो डेमो देखना पड़ेगा।
स्टेयर से बोल रहा हूँ, स्टेयर से।
रुक
सिटी आ गया।
कुछ कर दो भाई।
बोल रहा हूँ इवेंट वालों को रुक जाओ थोड़ा, मैं पैलेस को।
अच्छा रुक जा, बाय नहीं हो रहा क्या? मैं आप छोड़ के एक ही लेता हूँ, रुक जा। एक ड्रॉप भी कर दूंगा, एक ये ले।
स्लो कर।
मेरा स्मोक ले लो। मिड स्मोक
गलत बंदे को ड्रॉप दे दिया भाई इन्होंने।
ये ले।
कनेक्टर फेंका है।
पुश हो गया, मिड पुश हो गया।
हाइट बॉम्ब गिरा के आ जा रहे हो। बॉम्ब ड्रॉप। ये भी रुक।
We are out of here.
तीन बी कर लो इस राउंड, 2 ए कर लेते हैं, मैं ही खेल रहा हूँ। और 3 बी में एक बी शॉट एग्रेसिव खेलना। अभी बी जा रहा है।
Roger that. Move it, son. Here you go. Roger.
पैलेस
बी
यार तो मैं
नहीं देखता हुआ ना पिक बाय में जा। बॉम्ब हो गया।
हो रहा है।
शॉट एंड 2 बी साइड।
Bomb has been planted.
साइड पर
बेंच पे एक
भाई 3 बी हो यार, क्या कर रहे हो? स्मोक करते हो, हाइड होके खेलो थोड़ा पास से। पीको करना है यार, इको काम कर लो, ए स्टैक कर लो, 2 पैलेस पुश कर लो, बाकी 3 साइड पे स्टैक करो, बी छोड़ दो।
मैं मिड कॉल देता हूँ, तुम लोग को जाओ।
Let's have it live.
तीन मिनट पुश है।
Roger that.
बी शॉट जाएंगे। मार्क स्मोक
बी एब्सेंट शॉट। बी शॉट कूद के डीवल मार के गया भाई, मतलब नेक्स्ट लेवल बेसिकली।
कौन कहाँ खेलेगा?
पैलेस के
मैं भी खेल रहा हूँ। मेरे को भी आप चूज देना कोई।
तू सीटी स्मोक फेंकता हो जा रहा है अगर पैलेस जा रहा है तो?
Let's go.
ग्रीन तो भी आ रहा है ना, तो भी आप तो भूल गए मेरे को।
Incendiary. Flashbang.
पैलेस
Flashbang.
Amen and Palace. Last Amen and Palace.
पैलेस वाला पीछे जा।
Throwing smoke. Throwing a grenade.
आए लैडर बी मिड दोनों मिड रुक जा।
भाई क्या कॉल है?
अरे रुक जा, अभी मिड आए।
फ्लैश दो।
Deploying flashbang. Counter-terrorists win.
मैं बीएफ पुश किया था भाई, मेरी साउंड आया था मेरी तरफ से।
हाँ वही मेरे को लगा बी कैसे हो रहा है।
नहीं आप ही चढ़ा था
सेम
ऊपर भाई,
पोजी,
वो
सेम
फिर
पोजी,
सारा मेरा
फ्लैश
साउंड
दो,
है, तो
स्मोक
कूद
कर
गया
दो,
वो।
स्मोक कर दो और जैसे ही आए मॉली फेंक दो, हम बाकी लोग आ जाएंगे।
Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Incendiary out. Grenade out.
पैलेस
कनेक्टर स्मोक
Laying
जा
down.
जा जा।
कूद जाना चाहिए था भाई।
भाई क्यों मर रहे हो पुश करके भाई?
सेव करना बेटर।
Roger.
टॉप में है भाई।
टॉप में
कनेक्टर
वॉक कर रहे हैं। It was fishy.
वाले
Throwing fire. Throwing flashbang. Grenade out. Terrorists win.
भाई बीच में
भाई 2-1-2 कर लो, पुश मत करो। मैं मिड देख लेता
एक
हूँ।
ऑफ देना, पर्पल ऑफ देना है छोड़ दे। अच्छा तू कर रहा है?
मैं ऑफ करता हूँ। हाँ
बैठ जा रहा हूँ भाई।
मिड जा रहा है क्या तू? तो मैं बी शॉट देता हूँ ऑफ लेके।
अरे तू मेरे को दे दे, मैं ए कर लूँ।
ठीक है ले।
थैंक यू।
मैं मर जाऊंगा तो ले ले।
Affirmative. Roger. Incendiary.
पैलेस देखा ब्रो यार। स्मोक बनाया
दो लोग और
अंडर पास बी मल्टीपल बी
फ्लैश किया
हेलो मिड छोड़ा पी जा कोई मिड देखना हेलो
क्या कॉल है भाई
लो
मिड
लो 1 HP
शॉट एंड साइड
2v2 आ रहा
भाई पी कैसे कर रहे हो यार
नेक्स्ट राउंड चेंज कर लेंगे
1v2
1v2 नाइस ऑफ लेना भाई
every round is pushing short and killing me what you guys are doing इसमें
इसको ऑफ दे दे तू दूसरी दे दे
अजीब गेम प्ले है भाई
दो
मेरे को भी ऐसा होने यार दिमाग खराब
कहां
कोई नहीं भाई
मैं नहीं खेल रहा भाई ये एंकर ही करूंगा मैं
ऑफ तो दे पर्पल तू चला रहा है अब चला
चला
नहीं रुक जा तेरा स्पॉन है बेट का जा करेक्ट जा मैं जाता बी पे
Roger that.
एक बी है क्या
Throwing smoke.
भाई मेरी चार्ट तो फिर
Laying down smoke.
मिड
Flashbang.
साइड बैठा
बी आप
जा
बी
Throwing flashbang.
नीचे का पीछे का एक बंदा भी पे एक आगे आ रहा है
कनेक्टर
बी है बी रेड एक और है मिड पे है क्या
मार दिया उसको
बी शॉट क्लियर है क्या
पता नहीं
Throwing fire.
ये होगा भाई
लास्ट
Smoke.
देख रहे हो
भाई ये तीन बी का साउंड देंगे पीछे जाएंगे तो
99 and 1 lol
अरे टाइम आउट लेना
F1 कर दे
कनेक्टर जाता हूं
तू एक बार एमएन पिक लेता हुआ जाना मैं मॉली कर गाइस बी पे मत पड़ना प्लीज यार मॉली बचा के रखो 3 बी चलेगा वैसे लग मुझे ए रहा है पर 3 बी चलेगा
Roger that.
ए स्मोक्स होगा प्रॉपर्ली
अगर ये स्मोक तो रिटेक कर लेंगे आराम से
Yes,
इसको आगे
आराम
चलेगा ना।
Up this moment. Incendiary out. Roger that. Throwing a grenade.
एक और
Throwing fire. Grenade out. Throwing flashbang. Laying down smoke.
एचआर
Flashbang.
एमएन एक एमएन है
Deploying flashbang.
एमएन बाहर आके अंदर गया
There's no stopping us.
इकोनॉमी डाउन है एक राउंड और निकालो
मैं लैग
मैं जा रहा हूँ
फुल बायो का भाई लास्ट ही को था
बट इकोनॉमी डाउन है ब्रो
उनका लॉस बोनस ऑलमोस्ट
एक बस ये हरा दो फिर हो जाए बी कैच करना है फोड़ना मिड वाला
Laying down smoke. Incendiary. Deploying
मिड टू
flashbang.
पे
Grenade out.
मिड है
Smoke. Flashbang.
दे भाई पीछे जल्दी
भी आ गया हूँ टेंशन।
बी शॉट इन बी हो रहा है गाइस, बी हो रहा है।
हाँ उन्हें तो हाइट रहा
एक बीच और अभी दूसरा
है टैप्स।
गेट राइट।
एक और हाइट राइट
Grenade.
अरे रिलोड कर।
Throwing
तू
flashbang.
राइट देख पा रही।
साइड बोथ साइड एक शॉट एक साइड प्लांटिंग
लेफ्ट मार्केट प्लेस।
गेट है
नाइस 1v1 1
मार्केट क्लोज पे।
ये रहा
ये ना कम
लेफ्ट। हाँ ये
राइट होगा नाइस वन
नाइस शॉट ब्रो।
तू अटका था ना अभी चलते चलते।
Using the bomb.
हां ये अटका था।
नशे में हो भाई
ऑफ कर ये मार्केट लेफ्ट सीधा।
Oh, it's a piece of cake, so it is.
ये ले
सुनो फोर्स का होने वाला है। देख लो क्या करना है।
होल्ड करो भाई वो रश करेंगे मोस्टली साउंड है और ले देना रोटेट कर
ये छोड़ दो मैं तो ये देख लूंगा।
अच्छा this guy is actually trying hard to
मैं देख रहा हूं
बट
and
छोड़
the whole team is
जो करेंगे
उसकी
वही
गांड
करेंगे
पड़ेगी।
भाई, वही
Affirmative. Come on, jump.
पहले स्मोक कर देना।
Throwing fire. Roger that. Throwing flashbang. Incendiary. Deploying flashbang.
कनेक्टर फोड़ दो।
Throwing fire. Laying down smoke. Flashbang. Smoke.
पहले स्मोक है। मैं कनेक्टर देखा।
Roger.
वो लग रहा है कि रश होने वाला।
मेरे को लग रहा है ए ही होने वाला
ये हो रहा है।
अरे नहीं यार
पहले देख।
एमएन मल्टीपल वेल प्लेड भाई परफेक्ट।
ये अच्छा किया जिसने मॉली फेंक रहा है।
आया था भाई
मार तूने मॉली वोट।
ओए क्या
जल के वही खड़े
करेंगे
हो गए हो।
अरे भाई पूरे जलते हुए आ रहे हैं। भाई बी केयर।
पूरा मैच एंड हो गया नाउ द पिंग इज स्टेबल लाइक नॉट स्टेबल एट ऑल। छोड़ भाई एम बॉट से खेल लूंगा।
Roger that. Now we're really laying into them. Incendiary out. Flashbang. Incendiary. Grenade out. Grenade
ए,
out.
हट के पीछे
Grenade out. Throwing smoke. Laying down smoke. Throwing
दो
flashbang.
अपने
पोटेंशियली ट्राइंग शॉट
Deploying flashbang.
नेट से फोड़ो नहीं। नेट से फोड़ दो कनेक्टर का।
Flashbang.
रुक जा।
पहले से मैं कनेक्टर देख रहा हूँ। एमएन
मैं
पहले
हूं
से।
कनेक्टर भाई कनेक्टर
हाँ हाँ सपोर्ट
Laying
के लिए
down
देखा।
smoke.
मोड़े पास देख।
ए स्मोक्स गाइस
मार दे एक और।
नहीं यार क्या
पहले से
पहले से
Throwing a grenade.
प्लांट कर रहा है।
वाह यार
स्प्रे भाई स्प्रे मत खोल जा जल्दी। चुप ऑफ टाइम पड़ा है। तुमको नहीं पता है तुम दोनों कनेक्टर तो ज्यादा फायर मत कर। एक साइड है डिफॉल्ट।
अंडर पैलेस देख के
डिफॉल्ट है।
सिटी
ये वाला
वन
साइड पे राइट।
सिटी सामने क्या गंदा कॉल भाई पागल हूं मैं जी भाई कान भी खराब हो गए हैं भाई मेरे सीधा स्टार्ट्स में जाओ the best time to play for me to play is in morning only otherwise भाई खत्म है
Move it.
I wanted to see like how does how pros. You know these things are like yeah.
I started playing Counter-Strike 2 September 27th, 2023.
Ah,
I
get
started
this
playing
one.
Counter-Strike 2 September 27th, 2023 exclusively on the FACEIT platform. Shortly after my first few matches, I dropped to 900 elo, which is where I'd like to say I began my journey. Fast forward 7 months later, I found myself at 2008 elo and like to say I began my journey. Fast forward 7 months later, I found myself at 2008 elo and competing at FACEIT level 10, FACEIT's highest rank outside of top 1000 challengers. During this time, I maintained a healthy marriage with my wife, worked a full-time job, took care of my family, and finished my college degree.
This was the
Healthy marriage with my
insane.
wife,
I have seen this video for like 5-10
outside of
times.
top self at 2008 elo and competing at FACEIT level 10, FACEIT's highest rank outside of top 1000 challengers. During this time, I maintained a healthy marriage with my wife, worked a full-time job, took care of my family, and finished my college degree. A healthy marriage with my wife, worked a full-time job, took care of my family, and finished my college degree. What I'd like to do with this video is share my journey and the things I've learned along the way so I can help speed up your improvement.
Dude, this guy is insane. He just one-taps me, cat, every time.
During my journey, I discovered a multitude of different areas that are key to improve on in order to become a better Counter-Strike player. I've categorized these things as the 3 pillars of improvement. These 3 pillars are mechanics, utility usage, and game sense. The first 3 things I want to talk about in regards to mechanic is aiming. First, raw aim. Everyone understands to compete in Counter-Strike you need good aim. However, being good at aiming has multiple layers which you may not be practicing properly. There is your ability to stand still and aim, or raw aim, which almost everyone can do with a reasonable amount of practice. Tools to help you advance your ability to raw aim can be either standing still in aimbots and shooting bots, or using third-party programs like AimLabs. It's important to note that having incredible raw aiming ability will not result in improvement if this is the only skill you practice. However, having good raw aim is essential. Crosshair placement is something I'm sure you've heard of and understand its importance. However, when I began my journey, I acknowledged this importance and then neglected to practice it. During one of my several periods of plateauing, I discovered simply leveraging pre-fire maps to help improve my crosshair placement resulted in me finding easier kills, entering sites more effectively, and ultimately increased my elo by a few hundred. To this day, I practice pre-fire maps and review my demos to analyze my crosshair placement. No matter how good you think you are at this skill, there is always room for improvement. Good pre-fire maps can be found on prac.com or Refrag. A link to both of those will be improvement. Good pre-fire maps can be found on prac.com or Refrag. A link to both of those.
How long the subscription is left? Refrag. But the thing is, it will lag as well. I do have refrag in there. No, I don't have. Lol. Donate things. I need all of them, man. But instead of speed test, I'll choose refrag.
This is everything you need to improve in CS2 to improve your aim and get more frags. Everything from how to hold your mouse properly to ways to get zero recoil with every gun. We're going to cover every aspect of aiming in this video. If you're not sure you can trust me, I'm Louis, a 3000 elo player on FACEIT, and I play.
Wait, let me log in first. Let's go. Yeah. How long the subscription is left? Profile. Terrible. How can I see the? It should be there in the settings, no? Fucking email is so outdated. Cancelled? Okay, okay, okay. I paid and then it's like 3 August. How many days I have? I have a 1 week. Perfect. Chalo, koi nahi.
Will be in the description below. Spray can be found on prac.com or Refrag. A link to both of those will be in the description below. Spray control. This is the last thing I want to mention before moving on to different aspects of mechanics. Counter-Strike is a chaotic game, and because of this, things don't always pan out the way we envision. We will miss our first shot on the enemy countless times, whether it be because of bad aim or weapon inaccuracy. This will lead us into spraying our weapon more times than not. Feeling comfortable spraying your weapon and controlling it accurately will result in countless kills and overall make you a deadlier player. There is a workshop map to help improve this ability, which you should use to learn patterns and master them. It's important to note though, when you spray your rifle, more times than not the enemy will be moving. So I recommend using aimbots as well and turning on bot movement to help control your spray on moving targets once you feel comfortable with the spray. There is a workshop map to help improve this ability, which you should use to learn patterns and master them. It's important to note though, when you spray your rifle, more times than not the enemy will be moving. So I recommend using aimbots as well and turning on bot movement to help control your spray on moving targets once you feel comfortable with the spray. There are countless subcategories for movement, but get patterns and master them. It's important to note though, when you spray your rifle, more times than not the enemy will be moving. So I recommend using aimbots as well and turning on bot movement to help control your spray on moving targets once you feel comfortable with the spray. There are countless subcategories for movement, but for players who wish to leverage this skill to improve, the most important thing to practice is counter-strafing. This is closely tied into aiming, but because it's relative to you moving your player model, I've decided to put it under movement. In Counter-Strike, you are not accurate when moving. I expect most of you to understand this, however, I challenge you to review your demos and see how often you properly counter-strafe. I promise, unless you're playing higher than 2400 elo on FACEIT, there are going to be countless times where you fail to stop when moving. And begin to shoot. This skill can be improved in tandem with crosshair placement on pre-fire maps, which I mentioned earlier. If you master this fundamental, you will see incredible leaps in your skill rating. Skill jumps. On every map, there are locations where you can practice skill jumps to speed up your rotations or put yourself in optimal positions to pick a fight with the enemy. Start learning skill jumps on your favorite map and practice them in offline mode. Austin CS made a video a few months ago explaining how he improved and what he does in order to maintain his skills in practice. In this video,
Yeah, I do remember. I have to search Austin's as well.
He DM'd for 1 hour during Austin CS made a video a few months ago explaining how he improved and what he does in order to maintain his skills in practice. In this video, he explained that he DM'd for 1 hour during his practice sessions. He does note though that starting off with doing DMs for an hour a day can potentially be physically harmful if you're not used to that level of intensity for an extended period of time. I took this video to heart, and several months ago I decided that I was going to DM for at least 1 hour a day every day to improve. No, I do not recommend DMing on Valve servers in the game client. Based on your region, there are different platforms that you can find populated DM servers. If you're an NA like myself, prac.com is an excellent place to get your hour in. If you're from EU, I recommend looking at xplay.gg. Immediately following this training schedule, I saw massive improvements. I went from 1500 elo on FACEIT to 1800. In this training schedule, I saw massive improvements. xplay.gg. Immediately following this training schedule, I saw massive improvements. I went from 1500 elo on FACEIT to 1800 in under 2 weeks. I continue to DM every day for at least 1 hour. What I've discovered though is DMing for an hour straight can be mentally taxing, so breaking this up into 3 blocks of 20 minutes and taking a break in between is very beneficial. Especially if you struggle to maintain a high level of intensity. Again, I cannot stress enough just how important DMing is. I know it can be rage-inducing, boring, and overall something that just doesn't sound like fun, but if you can buckle down and get your hour in every day, I promise you will see improvements in your game. Learning lineups for utility is an excellent way to start improving. There is an abundance of YouTube content on CS2 utility usage. One of my absolute favorite content creators is CS Tactics. He has countless videos on every map showcasing creative ways to use your utility to create advantage for yourself and your team. Austin CS also has several shorts showcasing utility sets that can do the same. Dedicate some time in learning these lineups, go into an offline match, practice these lineups, and then implement them in your gameplay. Failing to do all 3 of these things, from my experience, resulted in me forgetting the lineups altogether. So be sure to learn the lineups, practice the lineups, and then apply them. Hold on. If you're enjoying the video, consider leaving a like. It really helps out the channel. Alright, back to the video. During my journey, I discovered just how difficult it is to effectively use flashbangs. I also learned once you develop any level of proficiency with them, how incredible they actually can be. Learning flash lineups is good and can be an effective way to support your teammates, but if you're mostly solo queue like how I am, learning how to pop flash for yourself can net you several kills per game. Wilson CS2 has an excellent video covering this and helped me improve my flashbang usage. I strongly encourage you check that video out. Link to description. While I was learning how to play CS2, I used a site called
Wilson, I follow on. Pop flashes. Whites.
चलो नहीं तुमको नहीं बोला तुम बैठो इसको गुड्डी को लगा उसके वॉक का टाइम हो गया मैंने बोल दिया उसको चलो अरे रुको यार इस बंदे को भी ले ही लो भाई नस तो चलो नस काट रहा है कौन नस काट रहा है
आईएम पे बैठे हैं क्या ये लोग
प्लान तो है यार अभी जनता भी
आईएम पे बैठे होंगे
शिकारियों का बैन है शिकारी आने दो 2 मिनट रुक जाओ
हाँ क्या
शिकारियों आ रहा
है क्या शिकारियों भैया
आ रहा है भाई आ रहा है
Is this his first time streaming?
ये सही है भाई प्योर पावर
Okay.
गैस बन गई है नहीं
That
देखो
before
पावर
us.
सब पे लोग आलसी है वो यूज कर लेता है और कुछ नहीं
A lot of you called Leadify to track my progress and give me advanced analytics of my gameplay. One of the tabs that they have is a tracker on utility. What I noticed for myself was I was exceeding the standard in a metric that they called unused utility on death. This number during the early stages of my journey was incredibly low. I thought this was a good thing until I started to realize that I was just dumping my utility immediately every round and in turn not using hardly any of it effectively. Being able to identify which situations to use your utility and when you shouldn't is key to effectively leveraging this equipment to become a better player. A few examples of this would be holding onto a smoke to defuse a bomb, or using that smoke to retake a site. Examples of this would be holding onto a smoke to defuse a bomb, or using that smoke to retake a site. The same thing goes for flashbangs, to become a better player. A few examples of this would be holding onto a smoke to defuse a bomb, or using that smoke to retake a site. The same thing goes for flashbangs. You can also hold on to HE grenades unless you have a lineup or you absolutely know where the enemy is where you're about to lob the nade. As a T, it's also beneficial to hold onto your smoke until your team wants to execute a site. There are countless ways to use your utility, and a good place to start to learn is to watch high elo streamers and see how they're using their grenades. Something I want to mention before we move on is lurk smokes. These are smokes that allow you to pass by the enemy or catch the enemy off guard, resulting in easy kills. These smokes are very useful, especially in lower elos or in solo queue. After I started implementing lurk smokes in my gameplay, I noticed just how effective they are and just how often enemies disrespect them. Similar to learning traditional lineups on YouTube, you can find countless lurk smokes for every map. It's important to play around with these smokes and find out what works best for you. Developing game sense is one of those weird skills that is difficult to measure outside of decision making and enemy prediction. The best way to develop this skill is to continue to play the game. If you're relatively new to the game, there isn't one thing I can tell you to instantly improve this skill. This is all developed over time. Outside of playing the game, a great way to develop game sense is to watch your demos. If you have never watched your demos before, I strongly encourage you to start. A great place to start when you do watch your replays is to begin with your deaths. Always ask yourself why you died. Was it a mechanical issue? Did the enemy catch you off guard? Why were they able to catch you off guard? Was my position good? Start to ask yourself this when you get into review, and I promise you will see results. Once you start watching more of your demos, start looking at the decisions in game. Examine your crosshair placement, study your movement, identify patterns with the enemy, break down key rounds, and finally, set specific goals based on your discoveries. I was blown away with just how fast I improved once I started reviewing my gameplay. I discovered just how many subconscious mistakes I was making. If I started watching my demos sooner, I would have made it to level 10 much faster. Map awareness. Understanding what is happening on the map, whether your teammates are communicating with you or not, is important for maintaining good positioning. A lot of problems with map awareness can be solved with effective settings to help maintain complete visual of the map. Here are my settings. This is all your preference, but the most important thing to keep in mind is that you should always be able to see the entire map while you're playing. Playstyle. There are countless styles of playing Counter-Strike. Some players find great success in almost exclusively being aggressive, while other players find equal amounts of success in maintaining a passive playstyle. I myself discovered that for me, maintaining a healthy mix between these two is best for me. As a CT, I will sometimes test the limits of what the enemy will let me get away with, like pushing through main on the respective site that I am holding. When plays like that work out for me, it helps to remind the enemy that I am capable of being aggressive, which requires them to put a crosshair on my potential push. Mixing that with being passive and always changing angles you are holding is very important for keeping the enemy guessing. That's it for my 3 pillars of improvement, but there are a few more things I'd like to add that aren't directly related to gameplay. First of which is consistency. You can practice all the things I mentioned before as hard as you possibly can today, but honestly, that won't really matter. You'll see minor improvements today, maybe, but honestly what counts is continuing to practice these things over a long period of time and remaining dedicated. If getting better at Counter-Strike is something you take seriously, then you need to hold yourself accountable to your routine and be sure to practice consistently. Personally, my routine consisted of killing 1,000 bots a day, deathmatching on Proc for an hour, and then playing FACEIT games, followed by a demo review. Like I said at the start of the video, outside of Counter-Strike, I work full-time, maintain a marriage, and since I began my journey in September last year, I've completed my college degree. Some days I wasn't able to play FACEIT matches, but I was always able to get my bot kills and deathmatch for at least 1 hour. Now with all that said, please focus on your mental health and do not neglect personal and professional responsibilities. I found during periods where I improved the most, it was when all the things in my life were accounted for and my mental health was good. At the end of the day, Counter-Strike is a game, and it should be enjoyed. So if that passion to get better dies or the game becomes unfun, then perhaps it's time to move on, or at the very least, take a break. So if that passion to get better dies or the game becomes unfun, then perhaps it's time to move on, or at the very least, take a break. Thank you for watching my no BS guide on improving at Counter-Strike. For those of you that stuck around and watched the entire video, I want you to know I really do appreciate it. If you want YouTube to put this video in front of more people, give the video a like. And if you want to share what you've done to improve at CS, please add it to the comments.
This guy late push.
Economy in Counter-Strike 2 is something that can be very easy to understand, but exceptionally hard.
YouTuber watching YouTube.
To master, and it's going to be my goal in today's video to try to help you get an understanding that might be a little bit better. Before. Now this video is something exceptionally hard to master, and it's going to be my goal in today's video to try to help you get an understanding that might be a little bit better than you had before. Now, this video is something that has been highly anticipated on my channel, and I'm very excited to finally give it to you. But before we get into it, I have a quick word from Skins Monkey. Skins Monkey is a trade bot that allows you to take some of the older skins that you might not be using anymore, things you forgot about, and trade them in for something a little bit fresh that you can use to impress your teammates. And it's really easy to do this. All you're going to do is sign in through Steam, click those skins that you don't want to use, grab the one that you do, and then after that, click trade. Trades happen for tab off video, and let's get back into it. So let's start at the beginning of the game. In the beginning, you start with $800 on pistol round, and your loss bonus is already at $1,900. We'll start by talking about loss bonus because I think it's the part that confuses the most people. Loss bonus is set to a scale of $1,400 to $3,400, and it goes up by $500 every time you lose a round in a row, and down by $500 every time you win a round. And if you ever forget, you can press tab to see where your loss bonus is at. Now, this is incredibly useful for knowing how much money you're going to be having in the next round or in future rounds. It's also really good to help you keep track of what the other team could possibly have. Now, when you're a beginner, they've made it a little bit easier to know what you'll have in the next round. When you're in the buy menu at the top right of your screen, it'll show you the minimum amount of money that you'll have next round. This doesn't include if you're winning the round, if you're planting the bomb, defusing the bomb, or getting kills. And this is an incredibly useful tool to have, especially if you're newer to the game. So make sure you're always double checking every time at the top right what you can have in the next round. So, loss bonus is something that is confusing. When should you buy and when shouldn't you buy? Well, the rule of thumb is pretty much this. If you have enough to buy in a specific round, let's say you have $5,000. If you can buy armor, rifle, and grenades, then you should. If you have less than $3,000, and so do all of your teammates, typically you should probably be saving because your loss bonus will make sure that you can buy next round. So let's say I have $3,000 and a $2,400 loss bonus. That means next round, if I don't buy anything, I'll have $5,400, which means that I can buy armor, rifle, and grenades, and that is typically what we're going to want going into a round. We want to have all of the bells and whistles. Now, sometimes you are going to have more money or less money than your teammates. If you ever find yourself having more money than the rest of your team, then it's your job to make sure that you balance the money. Sometimes this happens if you've won a couple of rounds and then you get reset, you might have more, and depending on what your team wants to do, if they want to save, then you should just buy down so you have the same amount as them. But if they want to buy, then you can feel free to buy everything that you want and just try your hardest to win the round. So that covers the basics of loss bonus, but we'll talk about the more complicated things later on into the video, so stay tuned if loss bonus, but we'll talk about the more complicated things later on into the video, so stay tuned if you want to see that. Now let's look at what happens when you win a round. If you win a round on either CT side or T side by killing the other team, you will get $3,250, which is quite a bit of money. Now, it is subject to change very slightly if you win by the actual objective of the game, as in on T side, if you win by the bomb exploding, you will get an extra $250, which means you'll end up with $3,500, and on CT side, if you win by defusing the bomb, you will get $3,500 as well. There is a small bonus to the player who plants the bomb as well as the player that defuses the bomb of $300, and that only goes to the one person that does the objective, and the $300 for planting on T side is rewarded to a player for planting, not by winning by plant, but just by planting. So it could be a way of getting some extra money if you are on T side. Also, if you plant the bomb but lose the round to a defuse, everybody on the team will get an extra $600. So there is an incentive to play for the objective even if you can't win the round. And no matter what, if you win or lose the round, you should always have money coming your way, unless if you lose the round to time on T side. Only on T side. That means if you're still alive when the timer runs out at the end of the round, you will get no money except for the money that you get from a kill reward. And speaking of kill rewards, let's talk about them right now. A kill reward is the amount of money that you get per kill that you get with whatever weapon you're using. So for example, all pistols have a $300 kill reward. So on pistol round, if you get 2 kills with a USP, you will get $600 as well as your loss bonus or your win bonus no matter what. All shotguns except for the XM1014 will give you $900. The XM has been slightly nerfed. It only gives you $600. The heavy rifles like the M249 and the Negev will give you $300. All SMGs will give you $600 as a kill reward except for the P90, which has been nerfed to $300 per kill. All rifles will give you $300 except for the Op, which will give you $100 per kill. The Zeus will give you $100 per kill, and the knife will give you the most, which is $1,500 per knife kill. And if you do happen to get a kill with a grenade, that will also give you $300. So since some guns will give you a higher kill reward, it's very common to see people use SMGs when they know that they're going to be playing versus an eco. That way they can farm up money, so when it's time for their gun round, they can buy all of their rifles. See people use SMGs when they know that they're going to be playing versus an eco. That way they can farm up money, so when it's time for their gun round, they can buy all of their rifles that they want as well as maybe an op. The CTs also have another economic advantage, which is that every player on the team will get $50 per kill that the team gets. So if you kill 4 people, everybody on your team gets an extra $200. If you kill 1 person, everybody on your team gets an extra $50. But that's only for CT side. And just so that we can make it super easy, this is the amount that you need for your full buys on CT and T side. This is also really helpful for keeping track of what the other team needs in order to have a full buy. So again, if you see how much money they have on their loss bonus and you know that a specific person maybe got 3 MAC-10 kills last round, that you can kind of guess how much money he's going to have and whether or not we should be expecting an op in the gun rounds. Now, there are some interesting ways of making money as well that you might run into. For example, if you're ever playing a 4 versus 5, you will get an extra $1,000 per round, and that is just to make it so you can buy more often and still have somewhat of a chance in the game. This doesn't typically happen at the higher levels, but it is still worth including because I know some people are struggling with having people disconnect all the time. Another way you could make money is if somebody on the other team takes themselves out. Maybe they fell off of the silo on Nuke and died. If that happens, then a random player on the other team will get the kill reward of whatever weapon that they have in their inventory. So if they're holding a MAC-10, they'll get $600. If they're holding an AK, they'll get $300. And that pretty much covers all of the basics of economy. It's going to take a lot of practice before you understand how much money the other team has and how much money you're going to have in future rounds, but just try to be mindful of what you have and what you don't, because the more that you understand what kind of money you and the other team have, the more you can understand what plays are going to be strong and what plays aren't going to be strong. You don't want to rush B if you know that they're going to have all of the 5.7s and the close range SMGs, because that if you know that they're going to have all of the 5.7s and the close range SMGs, because that is what those guns are strong for. For example, if we know that they are on a save or have bad money, we should maybe go out long on Dust 2, because pistols and SMGs aren't going to do a good job at handling those long range fights, because we want to make sure that we give ourselves the best chances to win the rounds always. Now, before we move on to talking about some of the more difficult to understand concepts, I'd like to give you a couple of questions. From this point in the video forward, we're going to talk about more advanced situations that could happen and when money gets complicated, which is mostly why people wanted this video. We're going to start with a very common situation that can happen, which is what happens if you lose the pistol round on CT side. Normally, you will have around $2,000 unless you got a couple of kills with your USP. You might have an extra $300, $500, $600, $900. Typically, you're going to want to buy into the next round, and this is something that a lot of people don't understand because you're buying an Armor 5.7 with grenades, and it's not going to be a great gun going against MAC-10s and Galils. The reason that this is normally going to be the best choice is because of something that a lot of players might call a double save. What is a double save? Well, to be honest with you, a double save doesn't really exist after the CSGO money update that happened almost 10 years ago. But what they're talking about is you can't buy for 2 rounds, so you end up saving 1 round and then a second round before you can actually buy. Now in CS2, we don't really have to do that anymore, and instead we can do 1 buy, then we can save, and then we'll have our money. So let's rewind. We lost the pistol round and you have $2,000. If you buy this round, you'll have not the best buy, 5.7 Armor, maybe you buy Armor MP9. That's okay. You have a decent chance to win the round because you're not playing against a full buy from the tees, and on the other side of things, if you do because you're not playing against a full buy from the tees, and on the other side of things, if you do lose the round, then your loss bonus will increase to 2,400, and now you have to save, and that's okay. Then when you lose the following round, you have the 2,400 loss bonus and the 2,900 loss bonus combined. So your first gun round is more likely to win than if you would have saved and then bought the next round. This is something that happens a lot in CS, where sometimes it's better to force buy after you lose when sometimes it doesn't feel comfortable. Typically, you would be doing this after you lose a round after you've already won one. So let's say you're on a winning streak of 3 rounds and you lose one. Almost always you should be buying into that following round. Just be doing this after you lose a round after you've already won one. So let's say you're on a winning streak of 3 rounds and you lose one. Almost always you should be buying into that following round just because of the concept of loss bonus that I was talking about before. Right now you can see the difference between buying on round 3 where you didn't do the force buy on CT side, then the 4th round buy if you went for the force, which gives you another chance to win the round, and then the eco after. Now the more that we actually discuss how to keep track of money, the more I want to challenge you to think about kill reward. Let's say you lost the pistol round and you're taking a full eco on CT side. If you know reward, let's say you lost the pistol round and you're taking a full eco on CT side. If you know that somebody has a to keep track of money, the more I want to challenge you to think about kill reward. Let's say you lost the pistol round and you're taking a full eco on CT side. If you know that somebody has a to keep track of money, the more I want to challenge you to think about kill reward. Let's say you lost the pistol round and you're taking a full eco on CT side. If you know that somebody has a MAC-10 and they're chasing you down, you should try to stay away from him, because if he gets a bunch of kills, that will significantly boost the other team's economy. And on the flip side, if you're on the T side or even the CT side and you know that you're playing a weak buy, it's okay to sometimes buy an SMG because you can farm a lot of money. So something I'd like to challenge you to think about is how much money people have based off of their kills. Let's say, something I'd like to challenge you to think about is how much money people have based off of their kills. Let's say you know one guy, this guy's name is Todd, let's say, and on pistol round, Todd gets a 3K with the Glock and you lose the round. In the following round, Todd buys a MAC-10 and he runs down 4 people and he gets a 4-man spray down with the MAC-10. How much money does Todd have? These are the kind of things that we really need to pay attention to, because Todd's going to have a lot more money than he should normally have because he's been farming with all of the kill reward bonuses. Now that we've covered those bases, let's talk about a more advanced way to keep track of when you should and shouldn't buy. This is going to be a little bit more complicated and requires you to be a bit more involved. Whenever you're going into the next round, you should always be pressing tab to see how many rounds in a row you've won or lost, and most importantly, how many players on the other team were alive at the end of the round. Something that we don't actually talk about a ton in CS is how money actually starts to grow. What I mean by that is, have you ever won 7 or 8 rounds in a row on CT side and then lost a round and somehow were completely broke? Well, the reason that that happens is the closer the rounds are, the more money that you have to spend in the following rounds. Which is why sometimes you'll hear people say good damage after you get 2 kills in a 1-on-3 even though you don't win it. It's because the more kills that you get, the more you force the other team to reinvest. And the easiest way to keep track of if a team has good or bad money is to see how many players they had left alive at the end of rounds. The rule of thumb for this is if a team wins a round with 3, 4, or 5 players alive, their money will grow.
This one is a crazy.
grow because only 2 players have to reinvest. Let's get back into it. So let's start at the beginning of the game. In the beginning, you start with $800 on pistol round and your loss bonus is already at $1,900. We'll start by talking about loss bonus because I think it's the part that confuses the most people. Loss bonus is set to a scale of 1,400 to 3,400. At 1,900. We'll start by talking about loss bonus because I think it's the part that confuses the most people. Okay, to sometimes buy you don't win it. It's because the more kills that you get, the more you force the other team to reinvest. And the easiest way to keep track of if a team has good or bad money is to see how many players they had left alive at the end of rounds. The rule of thumb for this is if a team wins a round with 3, 4, or 5 players alive, their money will grow because only 2 players have to reinvest into the round. So you can imagine that's 2 people dropping their teammates and then 1 person is saving that leftover money. That's how they grow money. But if you win a round with 2, 1, or 0 players alive, then your money goes down because then the majority of players are going to have to reinvest. And let's say you win around with 2 players. Now, only 2 players can drop another 2 players on the team, and the last person is going to be left with an MP9 or a 5.7. So the a 1-on-3 even though you don't win it. It's because the more kills that you get, the more you force the other team to reinvest. And the easiest way to keep track of if a team has good or bad money is to see how many players they had left alive at the end of rounds. The rule of thumb for this is if a team wins a round with 3, 4, or 5 players alive, their money will grow because only 2 players have to reinvest into the round. So you can imagine that's 2 people dropping their teammates and then 1 person is saving that leftover money. That's how they grow money. But if you win a round with 2, 1, or 0 players alive, then your money goes down because then the majority of players are going to have to reinvest. And let's say you win around with 2 players. Now, only 2 players can drop another 2 players on the team, and the last person is going to be left with an MP9 or a 5.7. So the closer that you can keep the rounds, the better. And the more rounds in a row that you can make sure that they have less than 3 players alive, even if they're winning, the more likely you are to actually come back. And of course, this comes back onto you as well. If you're playing on CT side or T side, this is why I can't stress enough that greeding for kills in clutches is a or T side. This is why I can't stress enough that greeding for kills in clutches is a terrible idea. If it's a 5 versus 2 situation and you stand to win with 5 players alive on your team, but you go and die and your teammate dies trading you, not only are you giving a chance for the other team to clutch the round, but you're giving away your money. And this could make it easier for the other team to come back. Even though you might feel comfortable with your 11-6 lead, if you start giving away your money, it could make it really easy for the other team to come back. So make sure you're being very careful and value your life. And that brings us to what is probably the most complicated part in keeping track of economy, which is saving. When the other team saves their weapons at the end of the round, it can be very easy to mask how much money they actually have, and it also means that you have to guess if they're going to force with those saved weapons or not. Now, why do we save? On CT side specifically, you would be saving when you know you can't win a round. Let's say you're the B player and your team has lost A site completely, you're in a 2-on-5 and there's no chance you win the round. Well, no reason to go give your gun away, you can use it in the next round, so you'll just save. But what that means for keeping track of money is how much money are you going to have in the next round? Well, you're still going to have a full buy, but you're going to have whatever loss you can use it in the next round, so you'll just save. But what that means for keeping track of money is how much money are you going to have in the next round? Well, you're still going to have a full buy, but you're going to have whatever loss bonus your team does, which means that you could maybe drop a rifle over to somebody. And that's the part that makes it tricky, because if you can drop something to your teammates and maybe make somewhat of a buy when you shouldn't have been able to before, it can be very hard to keep track. And this is why even more experienced players like what that means for keeping track of money is how much money are you going to have in the next round? Well, you're still going to have a full buy, but you're going to have whatever loss bonus your team does, which means that you could maybe drop a rifle over to somebody. And that's the part that makes it tricky, because if you can drop something to your teammates and maybe make somewhat of a buy when you shouldn't have been able to before, it can be very hard to keep track. And this is why even more experienced players like myself can get caught off guard by a random M4 out of nowhere. How do they have money for that? Well, it's because they've been saving and you lost track of what they could have. With that being said, it doesn't mean that when they save, you should just give up keeping track, because you really could do it. Let's say you've won the 3rd round on your T side and we know it really could do it. Let's say you've won the 3rd round on your T side, and we know it was the full investment from the CTs. They have max loss bonus now. And because you really could do it. Let's say you've won the 3rd round on your T side, and we know it was the full investment from the CTs. They have max loss bonus now. And you've won the round, and 2 of the CTs have stayed alive. How much money does everybody on the other team have? Well, they have however much their loss bonus is. Let's say in this instance, it's 3,400. Every player on CT side has 3,400, but 2 people already have armor M4. That means that those 2 players that already have guns can drop an M4 to 2 of their teammates, and then also buy a smoke and a flash, and then the 3rd person is going to just buy armor MP9 with full grenades, and they'll still have a full buy. So this is how you can tell when you should or shouldn't expect to buy. That is why hunting at the end of the round can be really useful. But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You can only justify hunting if you have extra money in your account. So if you're on T side and you're trying to hunt the CTs down, but all but it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You can only justify hunting if you have extra money in your account. So if you're on T side and you're trying to hunt the CTs, it can be really useful. But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You can only justify hunting if you have extra money in your account. So if you're on T side and you're trying to hunt the CTs down, but all of you guys are broke because it's the first round that you've won, and you know that even if you win the round, you have less than 3 people alive, you're going to be losing money. So it's always going to be up to you to decide whether or not you can justify giving away your guns to try to take away theirs at the end of rounds. Now, this isn't going to happen to you in the lower elos, but this is something that we think about a lot when you're playing the upper echelons of PUGs, or even if you're playing in higher ranked Team CS. This is something we deal with a ton. And so that is more of a risk reward. Do we want to take the risk to take away their guns while they're saving? What's the reward? Well, it's an easier round next round. What's the risk? A harder round for us next round. So that's always going to be up to you. If you want my advice, I say let them save so they can buy and hurt their money more. Now, all of these concepts apply to when you're playing, whether best guys in your back to expect to buy. That is why hunting at the end of the round can be really useful. But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You can only justify hunting if you have extra money in your account. So if you're on T side and you're trying to hunt the CTs down, but all of you guys are broke because it's the first round that you've won, and you know that even if you win the round, you have less than 3 people alive, you're going to be losing money. So it's always going to be up to you to decide whether or not you can justify giving away your guns to try to take away theirs at the end of rounds. Now, this isn't going to happen to you in the lower elos, but this is something that we think about a lot when you're playing the upper echelons of PUGs, or even if you're playing in higher ranked Team CS. This is something we deal with a ton. And so that is more of a risk reward. Do we want to take the risk to take away their guns while they're saving? What's the reward? Well, it's an easier round next round. What's the risk? A harder round for us next round. So that's always going to be up to you. If you want my advice, I say let them save so they can buy and hurt their money more. Now, to you. If you want my advice, I say let them save so they can buy and hurt their money more. Now, all of these concepts apply to the CT side as well. We've just been using the T side as an example because it's easier to explain how saving works, because Ts don't typically save. They don't get a loss reward if they do. So typically you'll hear casters say they need to die. And that's actually true. Sometimes if you're on the T side and you're going to run out of time, it's more beneficial to die and get the loss bonus than it would be to stay alive and get no money. Now, there are some instances where saving on the T side is justifiable, but I don't really know if I could explain that here. That's more of a concept that applies to actual pro playable, but I don't really know if I could explain that here. That's more of a concept that applies to actual pro players, and if you're doing it in a PUG, you probably just ran out of time and you're on the other side of the map, which is okay. Now, we're gonna do a couple of in-game examples, and I want you guys to try to keep track of how much money I have after this round. So on pistol round, we're gonna be going B, and we're going right through the smoke. Now, I'm gonna get the first kill right here on the guy in E-box, and then afterwards, I follow it up with a second kill. Now, I'm gonna switch over to the USP before going to plant the bomb, but before I plant the bomb, my teammates win the round. So how much money should I have? I got 2 kills with the Glock, and we won the round due to elimination. And because I bought armor, I only had $150 at the beginning of the round. So how much money should I have? 150 plus 3,250 plus 300 plus 300. That means I'm going to have $4,000 at the end of the round until I plant the bomb, which gives me an extra $300 for planting the bomb even after the round is over, which means I can buy everything I want into the next round. Now, whether or not I decide I want to use a MAC-10 to try to farm money or an AK just because I'm feeling it, that's purely going to be up to what I want to do. Now, for a bonus round, because we won the round, how much money does the other team have? If we rewind, we can see that 2 players got 1 kill. That means each of those players have gotten 300 for a USP kill. And when they lose the round, they have a 1900 loss bonus because that's where they start. That means that 3 players should have $2,000 and 2 players should have $2,300. So if we press tab, we can see that is correct. Of course, there's an extra $50 to compensate for if they did or didn't buy armor, or this guy bought a decoy, but this is typically how you can see how much money they're going to have. Should they buy this round? Should they save this round? Well, that would be up to them, but we know that if they do buy, it's just going to be pistols with armor and very light on the grenades, and if they do buy, it's just going to be pistols with armor and very light on the grenades, and if they do save this round, what does that mean? That means that if they don't buy anything else, they'll get their loss bonus of 2,400, which means that you can add their money plus 2,400, and that's what they're going to have. So after we win the round with only 2 people alive, our money is in a pretty sketchy spot, but look at how bad their money is. They have 4 players with only $4,000 and 1 player who can maybe buy a couple of extra nades if he wants to get a rifle. This is typically why I think it's better to force buy in the second round if you lose. That way your first buy will be better. Let's find a good example of that. Now in this round, Falcons is going to be taking the B site on Dust 2. They're going to plant the bomb. They're going to get the kills, but more importantly, they're going to win the round by bomb explosion, and Torzy stays alive, but he saves his armor. Now, how much money do the Falcons players have? They get all of the kill reward. Kyosuke gets 3 kills, which is $900, and then they win by explosion, which is $3,500, which means Kyosuke...
What the fuck is this? Falcon, Monesi, Kyosuke, Nico, Carrigan and Tissus. मतलब it's like कि यहाँ भी भ्रष्टाचार चल रहा है भाई. ये तो नाइंसाफी है भाई. ये तो obviously they'll win all the games, every match.
And then they win by
what about Tissus? Replace with him Donk.
Explosion, which is $3,500. 3 kills, which is $900, and then they win by explosion, which is $3,500, which means Kyosuke has $4,550, which is quite a bit. Now, on the other side of things, Mouse has lost the pistol, and unlike what just happened in the Pug, they decided to go for the full-on force buy. This is something that you'll see a ton of. Now, it doesn't end up panning out for them, but this is typically what you expect to see, and the reason is because, again, if they do lose this round, they'll get 2,400, and then they'll take their eco, and then they'll get the 2,900 on top, which is a better buy than if they were to have just saved this round and then bought with the 4,400. Now, where things get complicated is when things like this happen, where Mouse ends up saving an AK that they picked up from the Falcons as well as the Scout. Now, going into this next round, 2 players have saved. That means that we have a Hero AK and a Scout, and potentially Torzy could even drop an M4, and they could justify buying, because look at how weak the money on Falcons is. Why is their money so weak? It's because they won the round with less than 3 players alive. And once everybody buys what they're looking for, the leftover money isn't good. Their money is so bad that Monesi is even opting to not buy grenades because he knows that it's likely that they're still going to be half buy. Now, if we look at Mouse's money, this is another thing that's very less than 3 players alive. And once everybody buys what they're looking for, the leftover money isn't good. Their money is so bad that Monesi is even opting to not buy grenades because he knows that it's likely that they're still going to be half buy. Now, if we look at Mouse's money, this is another thing that's very common with the saved rifles, exactly like I described in that example, where you have those players dropping over weapons, and now they have a weird buy that is strangely pretty scary with an AK Scout and a couple of deagles, and they have a real chance to win the round, and that comes off the back of them deciding to save. If they had just went for the 2v2 and they didn't win it, they would have just however much money, maybe some pistols, and this round is nothing. But now they can really put up a fight against the Falcons. They do go on to lose the round, but because of what they did, which is lose the pistol, buy, and then save, even though they had the AK, because of what they did, which is lose the pistol, buy, and then save, even though they had the AK and the Scout, look at how much better this buy is right here than it would be if they just saved after they lost pistol and then bought. Now, I know you're not playing organized Team CS like Falcons and Mouse, but this is still the same money that you would have in a Pug if you played this way. So it is something that's really important to think about. Now I'm going to throw you in the deep end for a little bit of sink or swim multiple choice. Mouse is making the comeback later into the half. If I press tab, you can see that they've won 3 rounds in a row. That means that Falcons is about to be on max loss bonus, but they aren't yet. They only have 2,900 going into this round, and they know that they just played versus a full buy because they have, of course, fought an op and a couple of rifles. Kyosuke is going to save this AK. So my question to you is, what kind of buy is Falcons going to have next round when they get 2,900 per player and Kyosuke has a saved gun? Option 1, a full buy. Of course they can have a full buy, right? They're almost on max loss bonus. Kyosuke saves the AK. He can drop one. Surely they can full buy, correct? Option 2, a half buy, like we saw earlier what Mouse did, where Kyosuke will drop a pistol and the rest of the guys might buy some light invested stuff. And option 3, a full save with Kyosuke just having a hero AK. And option D, you don't know, a full save with Kyosuke just having a hero AK. And option D, you don't know. Honestly, it's hard to keep track at this stage, right? The correct answer was option B. Of course, we know that they only got 2,900 per player, and now that you can see their money, you can see that they've decided to go for a light investment because, of course, only 2,900 a player, they can't buy, which means that if they can get a little bit of armor, some grenades to support Kyosuke, we could maybe see him get active in the round, but no matter what happens, they have 3,400 coming their way next round, so they'll have a full buy. And something that's important to note is that m0NESY has $3,000, and the reason that he's done this is because the op is more expensive. If he buys down to $2,000, he's not going to have enough to buy everything that he needs as the opper. So if you're an opper, make sure that you're always adding $1,000 on your ecos, otherwise you're going to end up broke without an op. Time for another multiple choice question. You get completely mowed down on your T side by the CTs and don't even get a single kill. Now you get $2,900 for loss bonus. How do you decide to buy into this round? Keep in mind, next round you will be at max loss bonus, which means that you'll get $3,400. How should you choose to buy on T side? Is it option A, we take a full save, because of course if we have a full save, we can get all of the nades and an op next round. Option B, we force buy because we know that their money isn't actually as good as it seems and we have a chance to break them. Option C, we do a half buy, that way we can do a little bit of damage to the CT economy and maybe even sneak a round win.
Go
or
for
option D, you buy an AK and no comm to your teammates. Now, Mouse have decided to go for option C, where they take a half buy and buy Armor Tech 9 so that they can do a set strat. Now, you'll note that they are buying around $1,500 to $1,000. Exertion is buying down a little bit more because he's the IGL, so he'll have a little bit less next round. But everybody else has $1,500 or more, and the reason is because with the extra money, they'll be able to buy Armor AK, Smoke Flash, and of course a Molotov. So you can get away with this, and if they do damage to the Falcon's economy, that'll be good. Keep in mind, Falcon's economy is looking really good. They have had 5 and alive 3 rounds in a row, and look at what that means for their money. So it's really important to try to do some damage here. Now, they gave it a good attempt because Zelix does end up getting a kill here, but he does go down at the end, but they do get them under 3 people alive on a round win, which means that they are going to have to spend more money in the next round than they did this round. And of course, we see that Mouse has enough money to buy because of how they chose to buy in the next round. Here we have another really fun example to learn from. So Mongols has done an A execute and they have taken the site, and it looks like they're going to win the round. Now, Legacy has won 2 rounds in a row, and this was a Mongols buy. They had no money buying into this round, and they know that Legacy's money is good because they've only lost 1 person in 2 rounds. So the question I'm asking for you is, should they hunt this round? Their money is in an interesting spot, as we've seen. Is it justifiable? And the answer is maybe. I would say in this instance, they need to build their money up, especially if they want to make sure they win this half. And you can see that they agree with me by not giving away these guns. Because remember, the more people that they stay alive with at the end of the round, the more that their bankroll will go up. Now, they know because Legacy has won so convincingly in the last couple rounds that it doesn't matter what they do. Legacy will have a buy next round no matter what. However, in the following round, after another successful A take, now the Mongols are winning in a 5v3. The question I ask you is, should they hunt? This time the answer is yes, because they can buy if they lose no more than 2 people in this round, no matter what next round. And because they know that Legacy's money is actually in a pretty bad spot if they lose these guns, it's completely okay to hunt. Now, keeping in mind, it is probably still better if they keep more than 3 people alive, just in case this half spirals out of control later on. But yes, this is an example of a good hunt. And I also want to include one CT example as well, but I think it's easier to keep track of the team money in general. So in this specific round, the Mongols have had a pretty rough go of things. They've lost 3 rounds in a row, but these rounds have been somewhat close. 2 alive, 2 alive, and 1 4 alive, and they do end up winning this round somewhat comfortably, and Legacy's loss bonus is only 1,900. My question to you is, with the most previous round being a 4 alive round and a 1,900 loss bonus, what kind of buy are we expecting from Legacy in this round? Is it going to be a full buy with everything that they could ask for, B, a weird half buy where they're just trying to make it a little bit competitive but they're really just saving, C, a full-on force buy with Mac 10s and Tech 9s because they're broke, or D, this is a trick question and they have enough money to buy 5 ops? The answer is A. Typically, no matter what happens after you win a string of rounds and then lose one, you're always going to have some sort of money that you can justify buying with. Now, I will say, it was a good thing that the Mongols did so much damage in those first 2 rounds and made it so there was only 2 alive. When it's all said and done, this damage only translates to Dumao having a Galil missing a couple of nades and Sadson missing a couple of nades on his op. but it still does make a difference, especially with a game this tight. For our last example from this video, we have a very complicated one. So in this specific round, Legacy is up against it in a 3-on-3, but they do end up pulling through at the end. Now, before they end up getting this last kill in the round, I want you to look at something. Let's go ahead and look at their recent round wins and losses. We can see right now that the Mongols' loss bonus is only $1,900, and they won the round beforehand with only one person alive and a bomb explosion. That means that one person was alive and they lost all 4 other players and they went down to $0. So after this kill comes in for Lotto, we know that every player is going to get only $1,900 as a loss bonus. So my question to you is, given how messy this is, how much money does the Mongols team have? Now the answer isn't a trick question. They only have $1,900, but the person that was alive at the end of this clutch has more money than everyone else. You can see 910 has $4,000. Why? It's because he was the one that was alive. Whatever he had, armor gun, he did not need to buy in the round previously, which means that if they decide to buy in the next round, he might have a hero AK. And these are the kind of things that you want to keep an eye on. Because it's the T side, the Mongols decide to save, and because 910 didn't buy any more and he kept that extra money, he can now buy an up. And these are the kind of things that you need to keep an eye out when you're just thinking about what the other team can and can't have. And with that final example wrapped up, that is going to be the other AK, and these are the kind of things that you want to keep an eye on. Because it's round, he might have a hero AK, and these are the kind of things that you want to keep an eye on. Because it's the T side, the Mongols decide to save, and because 910 didn't buy any more and he kept that extra money, he can now buy an up. And these are the kind of things that you need to keep an eye out when you're just thinking about what the other team can and can't have. And with that final example wrapped up, when you're just thinking about what the other team can and can't have. And with that final example wrapped up, that is going to be the end of the economy video. Hopefully this video has given you some insight on how you can read the other team's money with some nice in-game examples that can kind of give you some perspective. But if you guys want to see more, I'm planning on doing a second version of this video where I do a live streamed PowerPoint presentation with actual examples, and I'll be interacting with the chat and taking all of your questions. If you want to see that, I will be streaming that live on Twitch and YouTube, and if you miss it, don't worry, I will also upload that video in full when it's time. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about in this video, I will be answering them in the comments below, as long as they're relevant to what we're talking about, of course. And make sure you guys let me know what you think about this. If I missed anything, feel free to let me know in the comments below. We spent a ton of time making this video. I wanted to make sure that it was perfect, so let me know if you think I did a good job. And if you do, then make sure you subscribe, like the video. Welcome.
Over the last few years, I've climbed to over 30
video, send it to your friend who can't count, and that's all I have for you today. Much love as always. Welcome to another episode. Welcome to another.
See if it's stable, let's go into deathmatch. If it will be, then we'll queue, otherwise, bye bye. Best ping is 123. Wow. It's crazy to see. How much is the ping? 87. 60, 50. Yeah, it's pretty stable. Who's this guy? Played Mirage against him? Okay. Nah. I played Mirage with him actually. Okay. Internet is good right now. Stable way. 200 sitter. Not level by. I'll rather go for aimbots. What is actually wrong here? Bandwidth नहीं मिल पा रहा है कि off my fucking god. I saw. There's no problem in like speed. I mean, the bandwidth, it's like very stable. Like you can get 50 to 100 Mbps, but main issue is this latency. I don't know what they do. That's why I say ki there's no issue in like streaming, but the main issue comes in like the latency. Don't know. It's always high.
Another episode of the
3800 elo and sub 500. Over the last few years, I've climbed to over 3800 elo and sub 5. Over the last few years, I've climbed to over 3800 elo and sub 500 on Faceit. And in this video, I've climbed to over 3800 elo and sub 500 on Faceit. And in this video, I'll break down the exact things that helped me improve the fastest. Warning: this video contains everything you need to know to improve in CS2, so you really don't have to watch anything else ever, unless it's everything you need to know to improve in CS2.
This was crazy.
So you really don't have.
This video, okay, crazy. Even pimp
to
one.
watch anything else ever, unless it's from my YouTube channel. Then you have to. So subscribe to get better.
अगले भाई.
Okay, let's start with identifying the most important mechanics in CS2. First, crosshair placement. This is without a doubt the most important aim mechanic in the game, and probably the biggest difference between low elo and high elo players. When people think about aim, they imagine insane flicks or inhuman reactions. But in TAC FPS games like in CS2, imagine insane flicks or inhuman reactions. But in TAC FPS games like in CS2, that's actually very inefficient. Your main goal should be to minimize unnecessary crosshair movement. Good crosshair placement means that when someone swings you, your crosshair is already where their head is going to be. When you're clearing angles, you're perfectly clearing a path where the enemies are most likely to be. Most missed shots at lower levels don't necessarily come from bad aim, but rather starting the fight with your crosshair not in the correct position. The second mechanic is movement, and movement is criminally underrated by CS players. It's something that you use in every gunfight, every rotation and entry pathing, and being efficient and confident with your movement is everything. There are three main aspects of movement. One of the most important mechanics in the game is counter-strafing. This skill requires pure muscle memory and spending thousands, if not tens of thousands of hours perfecting it. This simple mechanic is at the same time one of the most difficult parts of CS2. Is perfecting it is how you move around the map. It's memory and spending thousands, if not tens of thousands of hours perfecting it. This simple mechanic is at the same time one of the most difficult parts of CS2. The second aspect is how you move around the map. So how exposed you are while rotating or how quickly you can make those rotations happen. I mean, just take a look at these two clips. One of them is considered super wrong and time inefficient, even though you're never stopping and the path is pretty simple. Familiar with. The last part is movement inside the fight itself. Yes, counter-strafing is the core of it, but the crouch of hours perfecting it. This simple mechanic is at the same time one of the most difficult parts of CS2. The second aspect is how you move around the map. So how exposed you are while rotating or how quickly you can make those rotations happen. I mean, just take a look at these two clips. One of them is considered super wrong and time inefficient, even though you're never stopping and the path is pretty simple. Air strafing and crouch jumping are just one of many nuances of movement that every good player needs to be familiar with. The last part is movement inside the fight itself. Yes, counter-strafing is the core of it, but there's so much more to it. All of the picking techniques, AD strafe.
100 पे 5% ऑफ 95 होता है
Strafing, crouching.
क्या 135 I have to give you. हाँ वो तो ठीक है. वो पूरा मतलब कितने का था फिर? कितना देना है? 150. बढ़िया भाई, मेरे को लगा 300-500 जाएगा. मैं 250 का तो वही एक्सपेक्ट कर रहा था आइसक्रीम का कप टब. कोई नहीं, I'll send you.
Your opponent's shot difficult to hit, you will win the duel even against a better aiming enemy. The third most important mechanic part is movement inside the fight itself. Yes, counter-strafing, crouching and... The last part is movement inside the fight itself. Yes, counter-strafing is the core of it, but there's so much more to it. All of the picking techniques, AD strafing, crouching and uncrouching. At high-level Counter-Strike, yes, aim matters a lot. But if you can make your opponent's shot difficult to hit, you will win the duel even against a better aiming enemy. The third most important mechanic is spray control. This is the most straightforward of the three, but it's also where a lot of players misunderstand what good spray actually means. And no, it's not just about pulling down with your crosshair or strictly memorizing the AK pattern in a workshop map. It's also about understanding when committing to spraying is the right choice and understanding visual cues from bullets. At close range, spraying often makes sense because the fight happens quickly and there's no need to reset. Or when there's potential for multiple enemies, transferring your spray might get you more than just one. But at longer distances, trying to force a spray usually hurts you more than it helps. This is where bursting or tapping becomes the better option. And about those it hurts you more than it helps. This is where bursting or tapping becomes the better option. And about those visual cues, right now, launch CS2, join any map, and in console type this command. I promise this will single-handedly improve your spray, because now you can clearly see exactly where your bullets are going, which helps you correct your spray in real time. If you improve in these 3 areas, your crosshair placement, your movement and your spray control, you're already building a foundation that every pro player relies on. Everything else in the game becomes easier once these are solid, because here's the truth about Counter-Strike. No matter how good your utility or teamwork is, at some point you still have to win the fight in front of you to convert the round. Yo, sorry for interrupting for a second, but this video took an absurd amount of time to make. I mean, in the meantime, I even switched apartments and managed to cut myself because I am an idiot. But I really wanted this to feel like the most complete CS2 improvement guide possible. So if you find this video helpful, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And also join my Discord to get access to many useful resources, meet like-minded players who also want to improve, and if you've got any questions, I'm there, so I'll make sure to reply. Now you know the most important mechanics in CS2, but how do you actually practice them? Let's go over the main practice tools you can use to improve your gameplay. The most obvious one is Deathmatch. DM is easily one of the best mechanical accelerators in the game when you use it correctly. It forces you into constant fights, which means you're getting far more practice and experience in 30 minutes than you would in an entire week of matchmaking. The problem with Deathmatch is that it can feel messy. Spawns are sometimes random, which leads to you taking fights you would never take in a real match. People also often play in unrealistic ways just to farm KD, and it's easy to fall into the game when you use it correctly. It forces you into constant fights, which means you're getting far more practice and experience in 30 minutes than you would in an entire week of matchmaking. The problem with Deathmatch is that it can feel messy. Spawns are sometimes random, which leads to you taking fights you would never take in a real match. People also often play in unrealistic ways just to farm KD, and it's easy to fall into the trap of running around brainlessly chasing kills. When that happens, you're not really training anything useful. That's why the way you approach DM matters. Constant main practice tools you can use to improve your gameplay. The most obvious one is Deathmatch. DM is easily one of the best mechanical accelerators in the game when you use it correctly. It forces you into constant fights, which means you're getting far more practice and experience in 30 minutes than you would in an entire week of matchmaking. The problem with Deathmatch is that it can feel and use it correctly. It forces you into constant fights, which means you're getting far more practice and experience in 30 minutes than you would in an entire week of matchmaking. The problem with Deathmatch is that it can feel messy. Spawns are sometimes random, which leads to you taking fights you would never take in a real match. People also often play in unrealistic ways just to farm KD, and it's easy to fall into the trap of running around brainlessly chasing kills. When that happens, you're not really training anything useful. That's why the way you approach DM matters far more than how many kills you get. Focus on taking 1 or 2 fights at a time, instead of trying to cover every angle. Consciously work on your crosshair placement instead of relying on flicks. Approach DM matters far more than how many kills you get. Focus on taking 1 or 2 fights at a time, instead of trying to cover every angle. Consciously work on your crosshair placement instead of relying on flicks, and don't be a When that happens, you're not really training anything in a real match. People also often play in unrealistic to constant fights, which means you're getting far more practice and experience in 30 minutes than you would in an entire week of matchmaking. The problem with Deathmatch is that it can feel in 30 minutes than you would, forces you into constant fights, which means you're getting far more practice and experience in 30 minutes than you would in an entire week of matchmaking. The problem with Deathmatch is that it can feel messy. Spawns are sometimes random, which leads to you taking fights you would never take in a real match. People also often play in unrealistic ways just to farm KD, and it's easy to fall into the trap of running around brainlessly chasing kills. When that happens, you're not really training anything useful. That's why the way you approach DM matters far more than how many kills you get. Focus on taking 1 or 2 fights at a time, instead of trying to cover every angle. Consciously work on your crosshair placement instead of relying on flicks, and don't be afraid to experiment with new techniques, like adding more movement into your gunfights. If you've been struggling to transfer your DM performance into real games, it's because you're not practicing those repeatable scenarios and not identifying patterns. Personally, Deathmatch transformed my gameplay when I was at lower levels, but over time it can become frustrating, especially with how often you get killed from behind. This is exactly where Refrag comes in. Refrag is essentially an how transformed my gameplay when I was at lower levels, but over time it can become frustrating, especially with how often you get killed from behind. This is exactly where Refrag comes in. Refrag is essentially an all-in-one practice tool for Counter-Strike. You can practice crosshair placement, movement, spraying, raw aim, utility, retaking, defending. I think you get the point. If you're looking to translate your practice to real games, Refrag has everything you need. Look, I know I have my own code on Refrag right now, but I've been recommending it as the best practice tool in a lot of my videos long before that, simply because it has everything you'd ever want to improve in Counter-Strike. For those who don't know, use code BILY3 on refrag.gg/redeem to get access to everything on Refrag completely for free. But it can get overwhelming with how many modes Refrag has available. So here are my top 4 most useful Refrag scenarios. There's no better tool available than Xfire for practicing crosshair placement. It's not just about boring angle clearing. You constantly have to stay ready because bots will swing you on timing just like real players would in an actual game. I know this might look easy from my point of view, but trust me, this is a real challenge. I spend most of my time playing Refrag in this mode. The second scenario is Crossfire. I find this mode extremely efficient when it comes to practicing your in-game aim. I usually play this after my FACEIT games with my brain switched off, just focusing on my individual mechanics like counter strafing and flicks. Number 3 is Spray. And I think you know what this one trains. At first, it can be frustrating because this mode is genuinely difficult, especially on the hardest setting, but once you get it right, your spray will be transformed. And finally, Momentum. This mode is about map movement and skill jumps. It's basically KZ, but on real maps, and it actually transfers into your games. So yeah, Refrag basically takes the constant fighting of DM, removes the randomness and the messy parts, and offers so much more. And again, try out Refrag for free with my code BAILEY3 and decide for yourself if it's worth your money. Also, I've put all of those scenarios I just mentioned into playlists. Check them out in the description because I think you might like some of them. And yes, workshop maps are still useful, even though I personally don't rely on them as much anymore thanks to Refrag. If I ever play one, it's usually fast aim / reflex training. It's great for warming up and getting some tracking practice. If you're looking for a good workshop map, this is the one. It's simple, effective, and doesn't waste your time with unnecessary features. But now comes the thing that I'm really passionate about, which is aim trainers. Aim trainers are without a doubt the best thing you can do for your raw aim. For people who think they don't work and are a waste of time, I'm sorry to break it to you, but that's purely a skill issue. Over the 300 hours I've spent using aim trainers, they completely transformed my aim, and arguably just as importantly, gave me the confidence that I can win every fight I take. There are two main aim trainers people use. Aimlabs, which is free, and Kovacs, which is paid. In my experience, Kovacs is the superior option, and the one-time payment of $12 is more than worth it. But if you just want to try out aim trainers, Aimlabs is totally fine too. Also, having a structured routine inside an aim trainer makes a huge difference compared to just playing random scenarios. You can find my aim routines on my Discord. I highly recommend them.
Can actually buy it because I have played Aimlab for a very long time. Like Aimlab is one of the game which I've played a lot, like maybe 500 hours or maybe 1000. No, only 200 hours. Lol. I used to play 1 hour every day for like a while, and then let's go buy. Where is my inventory? I'll have to buy things to like for the next season pass. Let's buy this. Let's try this. How much is it for? 600, no? 300, so I have to sell only one. Why do I need to buy this game? Okay. 330. Now let's sell 2, man. Fuck it. I just hope they don't freeze the amount. Don't freeze the amount, please. Thank you. I'll buy this. Commanded by Thrift Ember. Bunny. Okay. Many players played this game before. Lol. I was thinking of getting back to like Aimlab because of my insane internet, I can't play, so I should rather go for. I go to cat when I have added tries. Make it once, like make it one. Hey, what is the problem? Is my stream working? Yeah, it's perfectly working, and even though Steam is not working. Yeah. Go back. Just fuck it to cart. Remove, buyer. Continue payment. I think I should. Yeah, I should. Pause my stream and I should pay it then. Perfect. Okay. Cubic. To favorite. Yeah, चलो हो गया. Let's go at 6 GB. Actually, I have to shift. Yeah. I'll install and C type. Hey, how much space is left? Hello? The fuck? 40 GB? What did I fill it up? Steam library, how much it is? Did I like download it GTA 5 or something like that? Should be. Okay, CSGO? Yeah. Then why does it take so long? It's in C drive or D drive? It's an F drive. Move to C. I mean, kuch bhi bhai. Okay, I got it. It's because of this shit. I have to delete it. God, manually. Click करूँगा, crash कर जाएगा. 50 GB, delete it, please. Thank you. Now record in background. ठीक है भाई, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. $7,000, wow, so much of money. Yeah. It's of 200. Are you kidding me? तो सस्ता हो गया. This one I want to know how they actually train him. Because I'll go for like I played what should I say, AimLab for a while, and even my playlist is there, but I'll go with this advanced one if it's working for people.
In payment of $12 is more than worth it. But if you just want to try out Aim Trainers, Aim Labs is totally fine too. Also, having a structured routine inside an Aim Trainer makes a huge difference compared to just playing random scenarios. You can find my aim routines on my Discord. I highly recommend them because I know they helped me a lot, and I'm confident they will help you too. One thing to note with Aim Trainers, however, is that improving inside an Aim Trainer doesn't necessarily make you a better player. Trust me, been there, done that. There was a time when I spent almost all of my practice time aim training, and I was shocked I was performing poorly in game. Playing the main game you're trying to improve at is far more important, which is why I would highly recommend not spending more than 20% of your total playtime in Aim Trainers. For example, if you play CS2 for 5 hours a day, you shouldn't spend more than an hour in Aim Trainers. And if you're a newer player, I would keep it closer to 10% or even 5%. Your aim gains will still be there, but it's much more important to focus on in-game mechanics like proper counter strafing or crosser placement. Think of Aim Trainers as a supplement to your improvement and not the main source of it. Now that you know what tools are available to you, the next step is building a routine. Just like you wouldn't walk into the gym and randomly start lifting weights, you need a plan, and ideally, a way to track your progress. Creating a routine is actually pretty simple. Try out the practice tools I mentioned, see which ones you enjoy, which ones challenge you, and which ones you feel are working and helping you improve. Then assign a certain amount of time or repetitions to each of them. The goal of a routine is not only to improve your gameplay, but also to make sure you don't burn yourself out. That's why I would recommend keeping your practice sessions under 2 hours. For example, my current routine is pretty straightforward. Every day that I play, I start by warming up with my Refrag playlist, and then I usually play around 4 to 5 games. Later in the evening, I aim train for about 20 to 30 minutes. On my off days, when I don't play FACEIT, I either play a different Refrag playlist or deathmatch for about 30 to 60 minutes. I would highly recommend you follow a similar structure. Warm up before your games, play your matches, and then do your extra training after. The most important part of your routine though is showing up consistently, even when you don't feel like playing. If you skip 2 days in a week just because you're not in the mood, I can promise you those missed sessions will add up over time and can seriously slow down your progress. This might be a controversial opinion, but if your main goal is to improve in CS2, Premier, go play FACEIT. The main reason is simple. The overall level of competition is much higher on FACEIT. You'll play against players who take the game more seriously, and facing stronger opponents is one of the fastest way to improve anyway. Premier doesn't really offer any advantage in terms of improvement, unless you have a small PP and you wanna cheat. And even though FACEIT is far from a perfect platform, it still does the job much better. So far, I've only talked about mechanics when it comes to gameplay, but in CS2, we've also got utility. The biggest problem that I see with this topic is that a lot of players try to learn all of the lineups in the world, and then they end up remembering none of them. Instead, you should only focus on learning a few very high-value nades. Learn instant lineups, 2 smokes per site, a few entry flashes, and maybe a Molotov. And that's everything you have to know. Will a few extra smokes on the map help? Yes, obviously, the numbers I mentioned are just the bare minimum. So go ahead and learn more, just make sure that you'll actually use these nades in your games. And yeah, you guessed it, Refrag also has a tool to help you with utility. It's called Nadar and Utility Hub. It allows you to learn new lineups, practice them quickly, and see exactly where your nades land, which makes the learning process much faster. My favorite CS creators when it comes to utility are NardOutHere and CS Tactics. They consistently upload very useful videos, so check out their channels for some cool lineups. Another very important part of utility is learning how to craft your own lineups. And by that, I don't mean sitting on an offline server and trying to invent anything new. What I actually mean is understanding how far a grenade will travel, using the environment to your advantage, and figuring things out on the fly. That's a big difference between high-level players and casuals. One thing a lot of players struggle with is figuring out what position or role they should actually play. A common mistake is trying to copy a pro player and forcing yourself into a role that doesn't naturally fit your playstyle or personality. Yes, personality matters too. Just because someone like Donk runs around entry fragging every round doesn't mean that's the role you should play. If you're a calm person just like me, maybe you'll be better off as an anchor. The best way to figure out your role is simple. Play a lot of matches, get a large enough sample size of games, and analyze where you have the most impact. Look at your stats, look at your win rate in those positions, and pay attention to where you feel the most confident during rounds. The key is not forcing a random role onto yourself, but discovering it through experience and a bit of an eye test. And once you find positions that suit you, keep playing them. The more you play the same roles and positions, the more experience you gain with the timings, the utility, and the common situations that happen there. Perhaps the most important factor to improving in Counter-Strike is how much time you're willing to sacrifice to this beautiful game. There is one rule about getting better at almost anything in life. You can't half-ass it. Playing deathmatch for 1 hour a week and 4 matches a week most likely won't get you far. Half-ass it. Playing deathmatch one factor. Perhaps the most important factor to improving in Counter-Strike is how much time you're willing to sacrifice to this beautiful game. There is one rule about getting better at almost anything in life. You can't half-ass it. Playing deathmatch for 1 hour a week and 4 matches a week most likely won't get you far. If you want to improve at CS2, you need to be committed. So how much time should you play? When you click on your Steam profile, you'll see 5 words. X hours past 2 weeks. This is what pretty much everyone looks at to determine whether someone is a real grinder or just a casual player. For example, most pro players have more than 100 hours in the last 2 weeks. That's almost 7 hours per day. But at the end of the day, that's their job. From my experience, if you want to consistently improve, that number should not be lower than 30 hours in 2 weeks, which translates to roughly 2 hours per day. Yes, I understand that might seem like a lot, but even if you skip a day because of work, studying, or other responsibilities, you can always compensate during the weekend. Personally, I believe 30 hours is the lower end. If you're serious about improving, I would recommend pushing that closer to 50 to 60 hours. Do you absolutely need that much time to improve? Of course not. You'll still improve with 30 hours. I'm simply telling you about improving, I would recommend pushing that closer to 50 to 60 hours. Do you absolutely need that much time to improve? Of course not. You'll still improve with 30 hours. I'm simply telling you what tends to work best, and it's up to you to adjust it to your own schedule. A seemingly small thing that becomes more and more important the higher you climb is communication. What I'll tell you right now is pretty much everything you need to know about it. Only call what you see, and maybe throw in any conclusions you can make from those observations. This means where you died from, how many enemies there are, and if they're executing, the HP on the last guy. These are examples of the bare minimum of communication that already gets the job done. You seriously don't need to give a full TED talk every round. Just make sure your teammates are aware of potential threats. Good communication also includes things like calling your flashes or other utility. If you're about to flash for a teammate, make sure to say it loud and clear, maybe even twice to make sure he understands what you're doing. Finally, remember that communication is also about attitude. If you're constantly complaining, blaming teammates, or arguing, people will stop listening to you entirely, and for a good reason. On the other hand, a calm player who gives useful information and keeps the team atmosphere positive can completely change the mood and even the outcome of a match. And on T-side, even if nobody asks for it, sometimes it's worth calling a simple strat. I understand that you might not be an IGL, but having a bad plan is always better than having no plan at all. Just getting everyone on the same page can already be enough to win you a round by itself. Most players completely overlook the economy. Meanwhile, the truth is you don't need to become a PhD in CS2 economics, but you should at least understand the basics, because bad money decisions can lose you rounds before they even start. The most important things to understand is when to eco, force, or full buy. If your team is constantly buying randomly every round, you'll end up with weak weapons, no utility, and almost no chance of winning against a proper buy. Sometimes the best decision is weak weapons, no utility, and almost no chance of winning against a proper buy. Sometimes the best decision is simply saving one round so your whole team can have a strong buy in the next one. You should also pay attention to the enemy economy. For example, you probably don't want to be taking cave control on Ancient as a CT when you know the enemy is low on money and might rush you with Tech 9s. You should also pay attention to the enemy economy. For example, you probably don't want to be taking cave control on Ancient as a CT when you know the enemy is low on money and might rush you with Tech 9s. That's basically asking to lose the round. And yes, this happens even at you probably don't want to be taking cave control on Ancient as a CT when you know the enemy is low on money and might rush you with Tech 9s. That's basically asking to lose the round. And yes, this happens even at my elo. I don't want in the next one. You should also pay attention to the enemy economy. For example, you probably don't want to be taking cave control on Ancient as a CT when you know the enemy is low on money and might rush you with Tech 9s. That's basically asking to lose the round. And yes, this happens even at my elo. Again, you don't need to calculate every dollar perfectly, but understanding the basic flow of the economy will give your team a much better chance of winning rounds. An extremely underrated way to improve is watching your demos and high-level players' POVs. Start with your own demos. Watching your own games will reveal mistakes you didn't notice while playing. You don't need to analyze everything. Just ask yourself simple questions. Why did I die here? Could I have taken this fight on a better timing? Did I use my utility at the right moment? Was my positioning off? You can also learn a surprising amount by watching how high elo players approach the game. Pay attention to how they play defaults, how they approach eco or force rounds, and even small details like where they plant the bomb in different situations. Watching POVs is also one of the best ways to understand decision making. Instead of focusing only on highlights, look at the entire round. Why did the player rotate, when they decided to take map control, or when they slowed the round down? Over time, you will start noticing patterns that repeat across many games. You can download demos directly from Faceit, watch pro matches, watch pros POVs on YouTube, or simply watch high elo streamers like myself. And if you want to get the most out of it, watch players who play the same positions as you. You'll start picking up small habits, angles, timings, and utility usage that you can immediately apply into your own games. Who play the same positions as you. You'll start picking up small habits, angles, timings, and utility usage that you can immediately apply into your own games. Even though there are 1,000 videos about perfect settings, there are only a few ones that actually matter. If you want to see my exact settings, I've got a full video on that, but here are the most important ones. One topic that people obsess over way too much is sensitivity and resolution. What actually matters is finding something comfortable and then sticking with it for a long time. And I mean thousands of hours. Players like Donk aren't insane because of their sensitivity. They're insane because they've spent a ridiculous amount of time on the same settings and gear. But there are still a few general guidelines that will help. You might have heard people say that higher sensitivity is much better in CS2 than it was in CSGO. Personally, I heavily disagree with that. I don't think the difference is nearly as big as people make it out to be. You can be extremely good with a lower sensitivity and just as good with a higher one. The transition from CS2 to CSGO makes no good with a lower sensitivity. I don't think the difference is nearly as big as people make it out to be. You can be extremely good with a lower sensitivity and just as good with a higher one. The transition from CS2 to CSGO makes no difference. A good rule of thumb is to use a sensitivity that allows you to comfortably do a full 180-degree turn across your entire mousepad. But personally, I wouldn't go much higher than around 1500 EDPI, with EDPI simply being your in-game sensitivity times your DPI. Speaking of DPI, it's much simpler. Most pros use either 400 or 800 DPI, and beyond that, the difference is honestly minimal. I would choose something like 800 or 1600 DPI and completely forget about it. Resolution, on the other hand, is in my opinion entirely about preference. Many players still use stretched resolutions because player models appear wider and you usually get a bit more FPS. Others prefer native resolution because the image looks clean and you get a wider FOV. Neither one is objectively better. The most important thing is that you feel comfortable on it. My personal preference used to be native 16:9, but nowadays I mostly play 4:3 because my high refresh monitor needs a lot of FPS to saturate it. But I'm absolutely certain I play just as well on 16:9 as I do on 4:3. It's really just preference. Arguably, the most important thing you'll learn from this video is to stop constantly changing your settings. Every time you change your sensitivity or resolution, you reset part of your muscle memory and your confidence. That's just making the game so much harder for yourself. Find settings that feel good, give them enough time to build consistency, and then stop touching them. Trust me, this is extremely important for your improvement. Now, besides sensitivity and resolution, there are also a few quality of life settings that I would strongly recommend enabling. First, show team ID through walls. Set this to everything. This allows you to quickly see your teammates' positions, their utility, HP.
अरे यार ये settings है. Thought कि update के बाद हटा दिया. I didn't pick this equipment, see.
Walls. Set this to of life settings that I would strongly recommend enabling. First, show team ID through walls. Set this to everything. This allows you to quickly see your teammates' positions, their utility, HP and weapons, which helps a lot with overall awareness. Second, mute enemy team. This is honestly my favorite setting. Set it to yes if you don't want to waste your energy.
Exactly, bhai.
Arguing with the enemy team. I also highly recommend using grenade binds for specific grenades. This makes pulling out utility faster and, more importantly, a lot more consistent. And finally, I would recommend having a radar zoom bind. Being able to quickly zoom your radar in and out helps a lot with rotations and overall map awareness. A lot more consistent. And finally, I would recommend having a radar zoom bind. Being able to quickly zoom your radar in and out helps a lot with rotations and overall map awareness. In 2026, if you still don't have a solid setup, you're unfortunately missing out. I'm not saying that if you're not averaging 800 FPS, you can't win fights. That's not true. But nowadays, there are so many good and relatively cheap peripherals available that playing on very outdated gear can hinder your performance. Good gear has always mattered, but it's never been this accessible. There are great mice, keyboards, mousepads, and monitors at almost every price point now. So if you're still playing on something like a G305 with a random old mousepad and a 60Hz monitor, upgrading your setup will make a noticeable difference. Mouse is probably the single most impactful peripheral in Counter-Strike. The most noticeable difference. Mouse is probably the single most impactful peripheral in Counter-Strike. The most important details to consider in a mouse are weight, ideally under 65 grams. I'm a firm believer that lighter is always better, so if I could choose between a 40-gram mouse and the same mouse that's 50 grams, I'll choose the 40-gram one. Shape, arguably the most important factor in a mouse. A shape has to fit your grip style and feel comfortable in your hand. Wireless versus wired. Of course, wireless is better, but to me, it's not a deal breaker. I hit my peak elo on the OP18K, which is a wired mouse. With a Bungie, most wired mice basically feel wireless already. Examples of really good mice are Logitech G Pro Superlight, pretty safe shape, probably the most popular mouse of all time. Logitech G Pro X2 Super Strike, if you're a millionaire and you have $200 to spend on a mouse. Endgame Logitech G Pro X2 Super Strike, if you're a millionaire and you have $200 to spend on a mouse. Endgame Gear OP18K, wired, really good price to performance, and very low click latency. There are infinitely other good mice. You can check prosettings.net to see what the pros are using, but remember, most of them are sponsored by companies, so just keep that in mind and make your own informed decision about buying stuff. The main message is pick the mouse with a good shape and stick with it. Most players completely ignore their mousepads, meanwhile it's one of the most important choices as a player. There are two main categories to choose from. On one hand, you've got control pads. They're slower, with higher static friction to help you with stopping power after your flicks. The vast majority of professional players use them, and they're usually preferred for tactical shooters like CS2 or Valorant. Good examples are SteelSeries QCK, the most legendary mousepad of all time. Really cheap, available everywhere, insanely good for the price. Artisan 0 and Artisan Type 99. The 0 is faster than the Type 99, but both are really good control mousepads. And Zowie GSR, a very popular mousepad, also a good control pad. And then on the other hand, you've got speed pads. And as you guessed it, they're faster than the control pads. Theoretically, this allows you to move quicker, perform micro adjustments quicker, and the friction doesn't stop you from becoming an aim god. On the flip side, it's a bit harder to be consistent, and from my experience, you're usually either extremely high or extremely low. Examples of quicker mousepads are glass pads like the Skypad 4.0. This has been my main mousepad for the last year and a half. Extremely fast, no friction at all thanks to glass, maximum consistency. Artisan Raiden, one of the fastest cloth pads out there. Super premium Artisan quality and stitching. PMM S2P, as fast if not faster than the Raiden, but more resistant to humidity. So Vaxi and Pulsar recently released their new mousepad, the PD170, which is supposed to be one of the best faster mousepads on the market right now, so it could be a solid option too. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a full review on it, maybe even comparing it with all the other mousepads I just mentioned. Like I said, for CS, control or balanced mousepads are objectively better, but don't let the norms stop you from trying out stuff for yourself. Mousepad size also matters. Larger pads give more freedom for low sensitivity players. My personal favorite mousepad size is 500mm by 500mm. Bigger is always better. Number 3, keyboard. This actually matters a lot more than people think, especially now with the rise of Hall effect keyboards. These keyboards allow you to customize actuation point and use features like rapid trigger, which can significantly improve movement and counter-strafing consistency. There are many cheap Hall effect keyboards available today, but if you want the best experience, I would still recommend Wooting. They've been the leading brand for years and their software is easily the best. So here the tip is really straightforward. Throw away your mechanical keyboard, grab a Hall effect one, and enjoy a real competitive advantage seemingly instantly. If you're curious about my keyboard settings, I play with an actuation point of 0.7mm and rapid trigger at 0.4mm. Now when it comes to the monitor, this is probably the most noticeable upgrade you can make to your setup, at least up to a certain point. A good monitor won't magically give you better aim, but it will make the game feel significantly smoother and more responsive. There are 3 things that really matter when choosing a monitor: refresh rate, panel type, and ghosting. Refresh rate is the big one. Simply put, the higher the refresh rate, the smoother the game will look, feel, and the easier it is to track moving targets. If you're still playing on 60Hz in 2026, I think you're just rage baiting. For competitive Counter-Strike, it's absolutely unacceptable. 144Hz is where things start becoming playable, and for a long time it was the standard for competitive players. But nowadays, I would highly recommend buying at least a 240Hz monitor. The second thing is the panel type. The 3 main ones you'll see are TN, IPS, and OLED. I've recently seen OLED panels be hyped literally everywhere because of the beautiful colors, instant response times, and super clean motion. Yeah, unfortunately I bought into the hype and bought the 480Hz 1440p OLED. And TLDR, for CS2, I much prefer the Zowie with TN panel. For competitive games, that's really all you need. And finally, ghosting. Ghosting is basically the motion blur caused by slow pixel response times. If a monitor has bad ghosting, moving targets will look blurry and harder to track, even if the refresh rate is high. Right now I'm using a 600Hz monitor from Zowie. I'll be making a full review about it soon. But the truth is, you absolutely don't need anything like that. The best price to performance options right now are usually 240Hz or 360Hz monitors. Once you're in that range, you're already getting almost all of the competitive advantage a high refresh rate monitor can give you. Now, the least important upgrade is definitely audio. Being able to clearly hear footsteps and direction cues is extremely important in CS, so naturally, having decent headphones matters. But to me, this is basically the same thing as with OLED monitors. People have been hyping up these enthusiast headphones because they come with a clearer bass, better soundstage, or whatever. I can tell you right now, you don't need it. My favorite headphones are the Logitech G Pro X. They're cheap, they have a really good headset mic if you need it, and you can set your EQ in the software, even though it's really buggy. Some players prefer IEMs and they're also used by pros at LAN events. Personally, I've never tried them because from my headset mic if you need it, and you can set your EQ in the software, even though it's really buggy. Some players prefer IEMs and they're also used by pros at LAN events. Personally, I've never tried them because from my personal experience, earbuds tend to hurt my ears after a while. So for long gaming sessions, I tried them because from my personal experience, earbuds tend to hurt my ears after a while. So for long gaming sessions, I much prefer full-size headphones. At the end of the day, this mostly comes down to comfort and preference. As long as your audio is clear and you can reliably hear everything around you, the difference between a good headset and IEMs isn't going to be what separates a pro player from a 3K elo player. Just one last thing about peripherals. Please don't fall into the trap of buying every new shiny product that comes out. The goal is to build a good, reliable setup and stick with it. Once you have something solid, focus on improving your gameplay instead of constantly changing your gear. Now I want to talk about something that ruins players more than bad aim ever will. The mental part of CS2. If you play a lot of Counter-Strike, which you have to do if you want to improve, you'll eventually experience everything. Toxic teammates, people going AFK, and games where nothing seems to work for you. and that's completely normal. What really matters is how you deal with it. A concept that helped me a lot is the 30-30-40 rule. Roughly 30% of your games are going to be losses no matter what you do. You could drop 95 kills like Donk and still lose because something goes wrong. Another 30% what you do. 30-30-40 rule. Roughly 30% of your games are going to be losses no matter what you do. You could drop 95 kills like Donk and still lose because something goes wrong. Another 30% are free wins, where your team might even carry the game. The remaining 40% are the matches where your performance actually decides the outcome, and your job is to focus on those 40%. If you keep tilting because of the 30% game you were never supposed to win in the first place, you might hurt your performance in the next one, which might be one of those 40% games. Another important thing is learning how to reset. Even if you're having a terrible game individually, you can still be useful. Drop your ego, support the teammates who are having a good game, throw utility for them, allow yourself to be traded by them, and communicate information. A lot of games are won simply because that one bottom fragging teammate never gave up and kept finding ways to be useful. And if you can feel yourself getting tilted, the worst thing you can do is instantly queuing again. Please take a short break, walk away from the PC, drink some water, whatever helps you reset. One tilted game can easily turn into a 5-game losing streak if you keep playing while being frustrated. The thing that personally helped me so much was finding a duo partner and joining a team. Look, solo queue isn't tragic, but it definitely has a lot of variables out of your control. So having at least one reliable teammate makes a huge difference. When you start queuing with a friend, you automatically have someone you can trust and someone who you can communicate with, or create 2-man plays together, and this already gives you a noticeable advantage over 5 randoms in the enemy team. If you're serious about improving even further, you might also consider joining a team. Playing structured Counter-Strike teaches you things that solo queue simply cannot. Proper team communication, set executes, and understanding how rounds actually work on a tactical level. Trust me, after playing in a team for a few months and then going back to solo queue, the game suddenly feels a lot easier. You start reading opponents much better, and it almost feels like you're mind controlling the enemy team into doing exactly what you expect. You don't need to join a professional team or anything close to that. Even playing in the ESEA season or some random tournaments can teach you a lot about the game and expose you to a completely different side of Counter-Strike that's, in my opinion, even more fun. At the end of the day, CS is a team game, and surrounding yourself with players who also want to improve will almost always accelerate your own progress. One last thing that might sound unrelated to the game, but actually matters a ton, is to take care of your IRL stuff. If your sleep schedule is completely destroyed because you've been playing Faceit at 3 AM, you're dehydrated, you haven't moved your body all day, and you're running on energy drinks and tilt, your gameplay will suffer heavily. Counter-Strike is a game that requires focus, fast decision-making, and consistent, fast reactions. And all of those things are directly affected by your physical and mental state. Simple habits here make a huge difference. Getting at least 7 hours of sleep, drinking enough water, taking short breaks between games, and being active physically will keep your brain much sharper during long gaming sessions. One more thing that helps a lot is balancing the game with other parts of your life. Studying, working out, spending time with friends, or pursuing other hobbies might seem like they're taking time away from CS, but in reality, they help prevent burnout and keep you motivated long term. And that's completely fine, because Counter-Strike is not a sprint, it's a marathon. If you apply even half of the things I talked about today, I can promise you'll become a better player. But most importantly, please don't forget to enjoy the game and have fun while playing. Thank you so much for watching, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is...
Should be fine now.
Dong. He is the best rifler in the world, and the legend is that Dong doesn't actually train. No aimbots, no deathmatch, no routine. He just jumps on and it's just pure, unfiltered chaos in pugs. Well, that's what I thought, until I saw his breakdown in this Zowie video. It turns out the world's most aggressive entry fragger has a very specific...
Still like terrible at what should I do? 1 AM. Oh. Ah, okay, it was 4G, that's why. 5G should be stable, I can play actually. Q1 Premier. Still so much of a... Like, what is the logic behind it? Is this super fast? Fast lane.